the mental transmitter of Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, A Ray of Hope. Watching the rapidly approaching sandstorm, Alex had no intention of dodging it. He stood there in a daze, wanting to cry but unable to. Alex had just tried, but even with all his energy, he couldn't break through the barrier of his small world. Even shaking it was difficult. With a whistling sound, the sandstorm finally approached, its flying gravel like blades. In a matter of moments, Alex's prison uniform was torn to shreds. Fortunately, Alex's body was extremely resilient, and his energy-absorbing abilities allowed him to remain unscathed throughout, even enjoying the experience. The sandstorm vanished just as quickly, passing over Alex in an instant and continuing its ravages. Alex used the sand to create a suit of armor, then layered it with a layer of energy-condensed clothing underneath for double protection. After all, Alex knew nothing about this core prison area, so he erred on the side of caution. Just as he was thinking, a figure suddenly appeared in the distance, flying towards him at a breakneck speed. Alex gathered his thoughts, his energy beams hidden. He watched the rapidly approaching figure with a wary expression, bracing himself for battle. In the blink of an eye, the newcomer was close. A middle-aged man dressed in blue, his sturdy frame topped by a square head, at first glance resembling a robot. Before Alex could even begin to react, the blue-clad figure suddenly attacked. The round eyes on his square head suddenly blinked, and two blue beams shot out, catching him by surprise. Alex, ever on guard, dodged the moment the blue beams shot out, ducking to the side. Turning back, he saw the two blue beams had already passed through the spot where he had been standing, finally striking the ground. The earthy gravel ground had miraculously frozen with a layer of blue ice, emitting a chilling chill. Freeze ray. Alex stared at the sudden appearance of the blue-clad figure in doubt, his first thought being the ring on Mandarin's hand. A flicker of surprise crossed the blue-haired figure's face, followed by a cold snort. His eyes blinked rapidly, and blue beams of light shot out like machine gun bullets. Alex had hoped to capture him alive, at least to gain a better understanding of the place. But when Alex tried to control the blue-haired figure with telepathy, he discovered the structure of his brain, and his telepathic probes were like entering a maze. He wandered around for a long time without finding the real target, and Alex himself was almost trapped. Desperate, Alex began to fight back. After 6 years of continuous battle, Alex's fighting skills had improved dramatically, and he had also learned many fighting techniques from other races in the universe. Alex moved, sticking to the ground like a shadow. In an instant, he appeared at the blue-haired figure's feet. Instead of attacking the blue-haired figure, he engaged the blue-haired figure's shadow. The blue-haired figure was startled, his face suddenly changed. He turned and tried to escape, but found himself frozen in place, unable to move. Gili-gulu-gi, a string of words Alex had never heard before uttered from the blue-haired middle-aged man's mouth. Then, his head flew off his neck, torn apart. Alex froze in shock. He lifted himself off the ground and stared at the head, which had vanished in midair. Turning back to the headless body before him, his expression filled with despair. "Who are you?" Just as Alex was lost in silence, another voice echoed in his ears. It was cold and piercingly murderous. Alex quickly turned around. A figure dressed in gold stood quietly nearby, a strange light glimmering in his red eyes. Just as Alex was about to speak, he felt a sudden pain in his head. The seed of consciousness planted by the nebula in his mind suddenly trembled, as if it were about to break free. Could this be the person Zingayan is looking for? Alex strained his psychic power to envelop his consciousness seed, preventing it from awakening. He looked up at the golden figure and spoke, "Hello, my name is Alex, and I'm from..." Before Alex could finish his sentence, the golden figure suddenly raised its hand. Alex's entire body tensed, and he realized he had lost control of his body. This, Alex cursed inwardly. The person the figure was looking for was truly no ordinary human. Even with his own abilities, he was completely powerless to fight back. Fortunately, despite losing control of his body, Alex's mind was free, and he quickly telepathically explained his origins. Of course, it was the identity Dao Jian had already arranged. After Alex's telepathic introduction, the golden figure gave a slight nod, but didn't let go of him. Instead, he surveyed him for a moment, perplexed, and asked, Why do I sense a familiar presence on you? Alex knew he could no longer conceal his feelings. He released the psychic force enveloping his consciousness seed, and his mind quietly left his body, awaiting what would happen next. As expected, without Alex's restraint, the consciousness seeds collided rapidly, and a powerful psychic force swept through Alex's mind, forcing him to fall into deep slumber. Alex's body was then possessed by the sudden psychic force. Alex's separated consciousness immediately noticed the change in his original body and, horrified, quickly retreated deep underground, carefully concealing itself, fearing discovery. Just as Alex hesitated whether to continue his descent, the golden figure's voice rang out, a hint of surprise and a touch of indifference. Thanos. He lowered his head slightly, his fingers moving imperceptibly. Deep underground, Alex's disembodied consciousness froze at the sound of that name. Thinking of the devastating mental force that had just dealt with his original consciousness, the fire of his consciousness trembled. Long time no see, Adam. Thanos, possessing Alex's body, shook his head and slowly opened his eyes. Alex's once clear and bright eyes now held a hint of dominance and pressure. The golden figure, or Adam as Thanos called him, snorted coldly, glanced at Alex, and finally fixed his gaze on his eyes. He said slowly, "What's the matter with you?" "Nothing, just wanted to see an old friend." Thanos laughed heartily, his unbridled laughter packed with such a powerful impact that even Alex's disembodied consciousness, deep underground, could barely withstand it. Just as Alex felt his consciousness about to shatter, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared around him, blocking out Thanos' powerful sonic waves. Alex was slightly startled, but after a moment's thought, he realized that this might be Adam's trick. Admiring the two men's power and terror, Alex became increasingly curious about what Thanos was planning. Chapter 252 Thanos. Hearing Thanos' words, Adam was stunned again. He slowly raised his hand, pointed at Thanos, and said slowly, "If you have something to say, say it now. If you have something to say, fart now." Underground, Alex was stunned again upon hearing these words. Although he had long suspected that Adam was extraordinary, he had never thought he would dare to scold Thanos. Thanos was a monstrous being whose reputation reverberated throughout the universe. To please Death, one of the 5 creator gods, he had single-handedly slaughtered entire galaxies. His cruelty and callousness were appalling. Just when Alex thought Thanos was about to explode in anger, Thanos calmly brushed it off, pretending nothing had happened. He then spoke, "Adam, the universe is about to fall into chaos again. You should not exile yourself. It needs you to save it." Alex was slightly stunned at these words, but then realized that if Adam dared to scold Thanos, his strength was beyond recognition. It seemed that the core prison would not be able to hold him. Adam's reason for staying here was probably truly the self-exile that Thanos had described. What puzzled Alex was what Thanos meant by the universe is about to plunge into chaos again. As far as Alex knew, the universe had been peaceful recently, save for the escalating war between the Kree and the Skrulls. Is Thanos going to intervene in the war between the two races? Alex thought to himself, somewhat surprised. As he was lost in thought, Adam's voice rang out again, still with a hint of indifference. "Go away, so domineering." Alex didn't know if anyone else in the universe had said similar words to Thanos, but he felt that no one was as domineering and direct as Adam. Alex secretly extended his telekinesis, wanting to see Thanos' reaction. But to Alex's surprise, Thanos remained unmoved. Instead, he revealed a mysterious smile and said slowly, "Adam, do you really want to watch the world destroyed?" At this point, Thanos paused deliberately, looked at Adam meaningfully, and then continued, "This includes your birthplace, Earth, Earthling." Alex was completely dumbfounded. He had always thought Adam was an alien, with golden skin, which was not a characteristic of an Earthling. Thinking of this, Alex suddenly paused, as if he had thought of something, and muttered in disbelief, "Could it be a mutant? An inhuman?" As far as Alex knew, besides humans on Earth, only mutants and inhumans could have golden skin like Adam. "Tell me the truth. What are you trying to do?" Adam's voice grew harsh, his voice growing increasingly impatient. "Don't try to trick me with such a moronic excuse." Thanos remained calm, looking at Adam seriously. "War is about to break out between the Kree and Skrull empires. Earth is caught in the middle, and its destruction is imminent. Thanos, I'm telling you, tell me the truth." Adam's voice became terrifying, a tangible pressure emanating from him. Even with Adam's protection, Alex, hiding underground, found it difficult to withstand it. Fortunately, Adam's aura faded as quickly as it had come. Alex was stunned when Adam suddenly spoke, his cold voice tinged with anger. "Whatever you want to do, I can help you. But you need to do me a favor." Thanos had clearly not anticipated this outcome. He had prepared a series of backup plans, but now they were useless. With a secret chuckle, Thanos nodded and agreed without hesitation. "Don't worry, I will help you. Just like you helped me. Before I help you, you need to help me deal with my dark incarnation first." Adam stared into the eyes of Thanos. His expression became solemn, and his tone became much more serious. Thanos' heart moved, a little puzzled. "Dark incarnation? I predict that at some point in the future, I will fall and turn evil, thus threatening the safety of the entire universe." Adam's mood was a little low, and his voice was much calmer, completely lacking the domineering attitude he had used to scold Thanos before. "So, I hope you can help me prevent him from appearing, and ensure that the evil version of myself will not appear in the future." Alex was confused underground, and had no idea what Adam was saying, even though he understood every word. Thanos was momentarily startled, then instantly understood everything. He nodded and said solemnly, "Okay, I can guarantee that in this future, the blackened warlock Adam will never appear." Adam looked at Thanos deeply, nodded, and said, "In that case, I will come find you." As he spoke, Adam raised his hand and waved it. Alex's body trembled for a moment. His once domineering and fierce eyes suddenly seemed to lose focus, and his figure was no longer visible. In just a moment, it quickly returned to its original state, clear and bright. Deep underground, Alex's disembodied consciousness immediately realized that his original body had awakened and reoccupied it. Alex cheered and, without a second thought, immediately returned to his original body. "Now tell me, who are you?" Alex had just regained control of his body when Adam's voice reached his ears, still as cold as ice. Alex paused, hesitating for a moment. Then, remembering Adam's earthling identity, he no longer concealed it and began to explain. "Actually, I'm from Earth too. I accidentally ended up in the Sheer Empire." He recounted his experiences briefly, and after some thought, he explained the reason for his arrival in Chin Prison. Judging from the previous conversation between Adam and Thanos, Alex believed Adam wasn't on Thanos' side, or at least their relationship wasn't exactly friendly. Adam remained silent, listening quietly. After Alex finished his last sentence, there was a long silence before Adam spoke. "I know Thanos well. He must have a special purpose in seeking me out." Adam glanced at Alex, a faint smile suddenly breaking across his zombie-like face. "I'll be careful. I won't let him succeed." Alex smiled awkwardly, nodded, and said with joy, "With your words, I guess Thanos won't get what he wants." Adam repeatedly insulted Thanos, but Thanos remained silent. In Alex's opinion, Adam was much more powerful than Thanos. With Adam watching over him, Thanos would definitely not be able to cause any trouble. Thinking of this, Alex couldn't help but laugh. With this, his mission was accomplished. Although he didn't know Thanos' purpose, he was certain that no matter what Thanos wanted, he would not succeed. That was it. Chapter 253 Bad Luck. Alex's mind suddenly relaxed after a heavy burden was lifted. He thought of a question and turned to Adam, asking curiously, "Mr. Adam, I just heard from Thanos that you were also born on Earth. I wonder." Before Alex could finish his words, he suddenly flew up and fell into some unknown space, surrounded by darkness. Alex tried to struggle, but his body was out of his control from beginning to end. Just as he was panicking, the darkness suddenly dissipated. Alex turned around and looked around to find himself in a meteorite belt. Not far behind him was the Qian Interstellar Prison. Alex was stunned on the spot, staring blankly at everything in front of him, even his speech was intermittent. After a moment of daze, Alex suddenly realized something. Holding his head, he wept bitterly, his face filled with regret. He slapped himself twice, cursing bitterly. "I told you to be so rude. I told you to be so rude. Why are you asking such a serious question?" Just as he was feeling regret, Alex felt as if he had been struck by something. Suddenly, he realized he was pressed against the glass of a spaceship's cockpit. To Alex's surprise, the person sitting in the cockpit was the same Princess Sharapova. She stared at him in astonishment for over a minute. "Hello, long time no see." After a moment's pause, Alex regained his composure, waved, and initiated teleportation, intending to leave and return to the planet in the core prison area. However, what Alex hadn't anticipated was that the moment he activated the teleportation, A surge of mental energy surged from the depths of his consciousness, sweeping through it like a tsunami. Without a second's hesitation, Alex's mind was instantly submerged. Alex fainted on the spot before he could even utter a scream. Even more terrifying, blood continued to flow from his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. The scene was extremely frightening. On the spaceship, Shara saw Alex greet her and immediately came to her senses. She immediately wanted to notify the Centurion of Keen Prison. But before she could act, Shara saw Alex bleeding from all 7 orifices and then fainted. Shara was stunned again, and a trace of panic still lingered in her heart. Now Alex was seriously injured, bleeding, and unconscious. It seemed like he had caused it. Thinking about her desertion and not flying the spaceship, how could Shara not panic? This was equivalent to causing injury. No, I have to save him first. Shara hesitated for a moment and made an incredible decision. Quickly stopping the spaceship, Sharapova scurried out, muttering under her breath, I can't let Mom know I killed someone with my spaceship, or she'll take my spaceship back. With this ridiculous thought, Sharapova struggled to pull Alex from the cockpit window and back inside. After carefully placing Alex, Sharapova began searching the cabin, soon pulling out a variety of medications and medical equipment. Which one should I use? Sharapova looked at the unconscious Alex, then at the medications and equipment she had found, feeling hesitant. While the medications and equipment didn't come with instructions, they could be scanned on the spaceship simulator. However, in her panic, Sharapova had forgotten this. After a moment of hesitation, Sharapova simply tried all the medications and equipment on Alex. They're harmless anyway, so let's just consider it a precaution, knowing her actions were a bit absurd. Sharapova consoled herself with this excuse. Sharapova was relieved, but Alex was in for a rough ride. If Alex had been conscious at this moment, he would have jumped up and lectured Sharapova. Could you take any medicine you wanted? Hadn't they heard the saying, every medicine is poisonous? Unfortunately, Alex was unconscious, completely clueless. Fortunately, Alex was unconscious, or he would have been tortured to death by Sharapova's breathtaking treatment. After using up a small portion of the medicine and equipment found on the spacecraft, Sharapova was surprised to find that Alex's profuse bleeding had stopped. This unexpected surprise filled Sharapova with excitement, even a hint of pride. It seems this princess has potential as a doctor. After boasting for a while, Sharapova continued to treat Alex with even greater enthusiasm. After 2 hours, when all the medicine and equipment on the spacecraft were exhausted, Sharapova finally stopped with a look of satisfaction. Why aren't you waking up yet? Seeing Alex still unconscious, Sharapova grew anxious and couldn't help but reach out and gently pat Alex's cheeks. First smack, no response. Another smack. A second smack, still no response. More smacks. She didn't know how many times she'd slapped him, until she noticed both of Alex's cheeks were red and swollen. She realized she'd gotten into trouble again, and her anxiety grew again. She immediately tried to give Alex more medication, but then turned around and realized she'd used up all the medicine and equipment on the ship. What now? Sharapova froze for a moment, then realized she'd used up all the medicine and equipment on the ship. Quickly activating the simulator, which she deliberately disabled, Sharapova searched for a way to reduce the swelling. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck her, the medication scanning function. She glanced back at the now empty medicine box, curled her lips, and pretended not to notice, continuing her search for a way to artificially reduce the swelling. With the help of the simulant, Shara finally managed to reduce the redness on Alex's cheek. As she prepared to return to the control of the spaceship, she reached the cockpit and was surprised to find that the spaceship had unknowingly returned to Xander. Startled, Shara immediately understood and glared at the simulant. Is it you? I'm sorry, I must obey the Queen's orders. The simulant's face, resembling a living being, revealed a remarkably human smile, its voice tinged with a hint of resignation. Furious, Shara sprinted over to the simulant, kicking and beating it mercilessly, complaining, I finally escaped, and I haven't had enough fun yet, and you're ruining me like this. I'll tear you apart when I get back. Just as Shara was beating and kicking the simulant, the spaceship stopped at an airport on Xander. A group of Nova soldiers had already gathered, followed by even more Nova Empire soldiers. Greetings, Her Royal Highness, a voice, neither humble nor overbearing, echoed from the leading Nova, piercing the ship's cabin and reaching Sharapova's ears. Sharapova kicked the robot again, snorted coldly, raised her head slightly, and slowly walked out of the ship. Before leaving, She glanced back at the still unconscious Alex, a look of confusion on her face. Chapter 254 Amnesia? No one knew of Alex's disappearance from Chin Prison, as Chin Prison had always left the core area unattended, with no surveillance or guards. To all the Nova Stars, escaping from the core area was impossible. It wasn't until 6 months later, with no news of Alex, that Dao Jian contacted Chin Prison spies, only to discover that Alex wasn't actually in Chin Prison, as if he had vanished into thin air. But that was a story for another time. Now, on Xander, in Queen Adora's residence, Princess Charlotte was receiving a lecture. Dressed in a formal blue gown, the Nova Queen sat solemnly at her desk. Though lacking any obvious royal trappings, her air of authority radiated. As she attended to her business, she casually asked, "Tell me, where have you been this time?" Charlotte immediately recalled her heroic deeds at Chin Prison and was about to boast about them when she suddenly remembered that one of the protagonists had been bumped into again not long ago and was now lying in a room in the Queen's residence. Thinking of this, Sharapova suddenly realized she had done something incredibly foolish. Just thinking about it made her head spin. Furthermore, Chin Prison was a place her mother had strictly forbidden her from going to. If she told anyone about it, she'd likely be grounded for years. For the sake of her future freedom, Sharapova decided to lie. It was a simple matter for her. Sharapova recounted her story, admiring her own storytelling skills, when she heard a startled cry. Her mother had already jumped up, her face pale. "What did you just say?" Charlotte looked at her mother in confusion. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in her head. Thinking of what she had just said, she immediately regretted it. She regretted it in her heart. "I made it up. I made it up. What did I say about space pirates? Shala, are you okay?" Adora is a queen and a mother. When she heard that her queen had encountered space pirates, her heart was immediately in suspense. She didn't care about the government affairs in her hands. She ran over the discs to Sharla, looked Sharla up and down, and asked with concern, "Shala, are you okay? Are you in no danger? They didn't hurt you, did they?" The series of questions made Sharla a little overwhelmed. Fortunately, she had some quick wits and thought of a wonderful excuse to cover it up. "Mother, I'm fine. When I got there, the space pirates had all left, leaving only debris all over the ground." As Sharla said this, her heart moved, and a cunning gleam flashed in her eyes. She turned around and added boastfully, "I even saved someone." "Huh?" Adora's face paled, her nerves rising again. "Who? Is he good or bad?" Oh, Sharla hesitated. She knew nothing about Alex either. All she knew was that he was an inmate at Chien Prison, but she couldn't tell anyone about that, or she'd be severely beaten or even grounded forever. Thinking of the potential consequences, Sharla decided to conceal Alex's identity. Shaking her head, she said, "I don't know, but he looks like a good guy. He was unconscious when I rescued him, and he hasn't woken up yet." While she spoke, Sharla muttered to herself, "No matter who you are or what you did in the past, I've saved you now, so you have to be a good person from now on." Well, without Alex's knowledge, he'd been given his first good guy card. "Take me to see." Adora couldn't believe her daughter's judgment. Without a second thought, she pulled her daughter up and demanded to see the man she had rescued. Sharapova was somewhat reluctant, hoping to wait for Alex to wake up so she could discuss her story. Fortunately, when Sharapova and Adora arrived at Alex's resting room, they found him still lying in bed, his eyes closed. It looked like he wouldn't wake up for a while. "What's wrong with him?" Adora observed Alex's body carefully, noticing a single injury. She couldn't help but wonder, no injuries at all. Sharapova, remembering her treatment aboard the spaceship, quickly claimed credit for it. Not surprisingly, Sharapova received a scolding from her mother in a basic medical course. Over a month passed unnoticed, and Alex remained unconscious in a room in the Queen's residence. Sharapova, having failed in her attempt to escape, was once again grounded for 6 months, a mandatory 6-month period. After just 2 weeks, Sharapova grew impatient and attempted to escape several times, but each time she was recaptured before she could even leave the Queen's residence. After several consecutive failures, Sharapova gave up on this game, which proved to be a dead end. Then, bored, Sharapova turned her attention to Alex. Fortunately, Sharapova didn't do anything out of the ordinary. She simply treated the unconscious Alex like a mysterious tree hole, pouring out the words she had been accumulating for over a decade. One day in the 3rd month, Sharapova was sitting by Alex's bed, laughing heartily as she reminisced about embarrassing childhood memories. In her excitement, Sharapova's laughter caught her breath, and she accidentally fell on top of Alex. Her body shook violently, and Sharapova was surprised to find that the person beneath her seemed to move. Startled, Sharapova turned to look at Alex, and immediately met his eyes. Those blackberry-like eyes were filled with a wisdom that emanated from his soul, like a bottomless pit that could captivate anyone, forcing them to fall into it. It seemed like a moment, or a very long time, before Sharapova suddenly came back to her senses. She quickly sat up, her pretty face flushed, and asked crisply, "Are you awake?" Her voice was so gentle that it was almost sickening. If someone familiar with Sharapova heard it, they would probably think they had seen a ghost. "Who are you?" Alex shook his head slightly, his brows furrowed. He stared at Sharapova for a long time, then asked with a hint of surprise, "And who am I?" No mistake in the song, post, content, and book. Huh? Sharapova was stunned. She stared at Alex blankly for a long moment before she instinctively asked, "You forgot everything?" Alex's brows furrowed even deeper, as if he were trying to recall something. But after a moment, he shook his head bitterly, "I can't remember anything. My mind is blank." "Are you lying?" Sharapova carefully studied Alex, hesitant, muttering to herself, "I don't believe a single collision with one of her spaceships could cause someone to lose their memory." Even as she pondered this, Sharapova soothed him, "Don't worry, I'll get you a doctor." As she spoke, she stood up and hurried out of the room. After a few steps, Sharapova deliberately turned back, only to find Alex had also turned to look at her. Confusion filled his bright black eyes, and a faint, unwavering pain lingered. With an awkward laugh, Sharapova turned and left again. Thinking about the look she had just seen, she muttered uncertainly, "Could it be that she really has lost her memory? Everything is temporary and will be fine soon." Chapter 255 Alex. Soon after, Charlotte returned with the doctor, followed by Adora, who led the way. Behind them followed two Centaurians in Nova uniforms. Adora entered the room, her eagle-like eyes immediately scanning Alex. She didn't believe Alex had truly lost his memory. But Adora was surprised to see tears welling in Alex's dark eyes, yet their expression was filled with confusion. Alex's mind was blank. He couldn't remember anything, his name, his past, or anything else. Losing everything had made Alex forget the pain. Yet, for some reason, Alex couldn't stop crying, his heart aching. Charlotte was surprised to see her mother standing blankly in the doorway. She instinctively turned to look at Alex in the room. Seeing Alex's eyes again, those misty, glittering eyes, Charlotte felt her heart clench. "Who are you?" Alex blinked, swallowing back tears. He glanced hesitantly at Sharapova before asking, his voice rising slightly. Adora's voice jolted her awake. Instead of answering Alex's question, she turned to the doctor who had followed. The doctor nodded respectfully, carrying a medical kit, and approached Alex's bedside. He raised his hand to grasp Alex's right hand for examination, but Alex dodged, a knee-jerk reaction, pure self-preservation. "What do you want?" Alex withdrew his right hand and looked up at the doctor standing by the bed. Sharapova, already convinced that Alex had truly lost his memory, quickly ran to the bedside, reached out and grasped Alex's right hand, whispering soothingly, "Don't worry, he's just checking you out." Alex had a natural liking for the first person he saw upon opening his eyes, Sharapova. Hearing Sharapova's words, he unconsciously believed her. He glanced at the doctor, as if to confirm that he meant no harm, before extending his right hand. The doctor gave a wry smile and, without giving it much thought, began a thorough examination. After nearly half an hour, the doctor finally finished. He glanced at Alex with a complicated expression, then turned to Adora and said, "He's not seriously ill, and in fact, very strong. We just want to know what's wrong with him." Sharapova interrupted before the doctor could finish, pointing at Alex's head with a clear intention. The doctor turned to Alex, his brow furrowed slightly. After a long silence, he said, "There's no abnormality in his brain structure. Everything is intact, so, he doesn't have amnesia." Upon hearing the doctor's words, Adora immediately prepared to call on the rising star Centurion, but seeing the undisguised confusion on Alex's face and the deep loneliness in his eyes, Adora paused and turned to the doctor, puzzled. Anyone seeing Alex at that moment would believe he truly had lost his memory. The doctor shook his head. Just as he was about to speak, he quickly closed his mouth, pondering for a moment before speaking. "Although his brain is intact, His consciousness may have been severely impacted, leading to his current condition. After a pause, the doctor spoke again. You could say it's amnesia, but it's actually more like a state of confusion, a state of disorganization. I don't quite understand. Sharapova was bewildered. She turned to look at Alex, lost in thought, feeling a pang of distress. The doctor glanced at Adora, who was also bewildered, and with a wry smile, said, simply put, amnesia can be gradually improved with treatment. But confusion cannot be cured. Alex's expressionless face finally shifted. He turned to look at the doctor, a hint of despair in his calm eyes. Sensing Alex's gaze, the doctor turned his head, a thought stirring in his heart, and said comfortingly, perhaps there is a treatment, but we just don't know about it yet. With a faint smile, the doctor added, the universe is vast, and there are always things we don't know about. Time flew by. 3 months had passed since the doctor's last checkup. That day, on the planet Xander, in a room in the Queen's residence, Shara and Alex sat opposite each other. Between them, a round dining table was set with delicious, fragrant dishes and an open bottle of Xander wine. Each held a glass filled with a pale yellow liquid. Alex, you're truly amazing. Shara looked at Alex across from her with delight, raising her glass and exclaiming excitedly, in just 3 months, you've already reached the rank of 2-star rising star. I truly admire you. Alex, now amnesiac, had no name, and Shara had originally considered giving him one of her own choosing. But after some thought, Shara abandoned the idea and painstakingly researched the name of Alex at Chien prison, ultimately settling on it. Without further ado, Shara adopted the name Alex, ignoring the other details in the file. Alex glanced at Shara, a smile curling his lips. He remained silent, his mind recollecting the events of the past 3 months. Since waking up, Alex has discovered he's lost his memory. No, that's not right. The doctor called it confusion. But to Alex, it all meant the same thing. He'd forgotten everything. All that remained was his body's instincts. Losing his memory didn't make him stupid. On the contrary, Alex felt incredibly intelligent, especially when it came to his body's instincts. Upon waking, Alex knew nothing about himself, and speaking was a natural reaction. But after a period of adjustment, Alex discovered his body was full of secrets, its instincts powerful and mysterious. First, language. Alex was certain he only spoke the Nova language upon waking. But after being exposed to other alien languages, Alex was astonished to discover he seemed to know them too. In less than a week, Alex had mastered dozens of them. The second is special abilities. In a battle after joining the Nova Corps, Alex unexpectedly discovered that his body seemed to be able to absorb energy, whether it was kinetic energy, thermal energy, or other forms of energy. For some reason, Alex chose to conceal his ability and did not reveal it to anyone. After discovering that he had this ability, Alex knew that he was definitely not an ordinary person before he lost his memory. From the words that Sharapova accidentally revealed, Alex even suspected that he might have been a bad person in the past. I'm no longer you. Thinking of his past, Alex shook his head slightly, and muttered with a firm expression, I am Alex now. Chapter 256 Storm Rising. Alex, what are you thinking about? Sharapova pouted angrily, glaring at him across from her with a displeased expression. She'd been holding her glass for a long time, but Alex hadn't reacted. Alex, snapping out of his memories, looked up at Sharapova, gave a dry laugh, and quickly raised his glass, clinking it with hers before chugging it down. Then, he explained, no, I was just thinking about the past. Sharapova was startled, then exclaimed, Alex, you're thinking about the past? Her exclamation was filled with surprise, tinged with a hint of worry and resentment. She'd only been with Alex for 6 months, and for the first 3 months, he'd been in a coma. Yet, Sharapova had already fallen deeply in love with him, for no apparent reason, not even Sharapova herself. This was precisely why Sharapova didn't want Alex to recall the past, because that would mean she was only 1/60th of Alex's 30-plus years. Alex could clearly feel the worry in Sharapova's eyes. He chuckled, shook his head and said, I've told you, my amnesia can't be cured. Alex couldn't help laughing again and explained after a while, I was more worried before, but it was only 2 months ago. Sharapova patted her chest when she heard that, glared at Alex with dissatisfaction, and cursed indignantly, you just know how to scare me. While Alex and Sharapova were talking and laughing, in the star royal capital of the Sheer Empire, the Sheer Queen Dangerous Bird sat on the throne with a gloomy face, and Dao Jian stood below with his body hunched, with an equally ugly expression on his face. Dangerbird took a few deep breaths, suppressing her raging anger. She slowly asked, "Tell me, what's going on? Half a year has passed, and there's been no news from Alex." Thinking of the missing Alex, Dao Jian's emotions fluctuated slightly, and her voice became agitated. "I secretly contacted the Qian prison and found out that Alex was thrown into the core prison area because of an escape attempt." Core prison area, Dangerbird frowned, and the feather crest on her head couldn't help but tremble violently. Others didn't know about the core prison area, but as the queen of the Sheer Empire, Dangerbird knew a little about it. Once you enter there, there's basically no way out. On the side, Lilandra finally came back to her senses from the news of Alex's disappearance. After hearing what Dao Jian said, she asked in confusion, "It's just a prison break. He doesn't have to be thrown into the core prison area, right?" Lilandra paused slightly, and added again, "Also, why did Alex break out of prison? It's not clear why Alex wants to break out of prison." As for why he was thrown into the core prison area, Dao Jian turned his head and glanced at Lilandra. A trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Princess Shereva of the Nova Empire was in Jin prison at the time. Alex kidnapped Princess Shereva when he broke out of prison." Listening to Dao Jian's words, Dangerbird panted heavily and growled angrily, "Alex, what on earth does he want to do?" His carefully planned plan was facing bankruptcy because of Alex. Dangerbird couldn't stand it no matter how good his temper was. Dao Jian glanced at the enraged Dangerbird, coughed lightly, and, ignoring Dangerbird's glare, continued, "After learning that Alex was imprisoned in the core cell, I sent additional personnel to rescue him." "Why rescue him? Let him die in there." Dangerbird, now filled with even greater hatred for Alex, erupted in curses upon hearing Dao Jian's words. Dao Jian glanced at Dangerbird awkwardly, then gathered himself and said mysteriously, "But Alex isn't in the core cell right now." "What did you say?" Dangerbird leaped from its throne, looking at Dao Jian with a look of disbelief. Anyone who truly understood the core cell of Qian prison knew that once imprisoned there, there was no hope of escape. Despite Alex's extraordinary abilities, escaping the core cell was clearly impossible. With his mind racing, Dangerbird immediately thought of another possibility. He slowly sat back on the throne, his expression becoming indifferent. "You mean, Alex died in there?" Alex couldn't have escaped from the core prison area, so there was only one other possibility: he died. The core prison area had no management, and death there was very normal. Although the core prison area lacks management, there will still be tracking records of the prisoners there. But what surprised Dangerbird was that Dao Jian shook his head, his expression very solemn. "There is no death record for Alex. It's like he really disappeared." Moreover, not long after Alex disappeared, another person also disappeared from the core prison area. Someone else disappeared. Dangerbird was completely upset. When did the core prison area become so easy to enter and exit? Dao Jian nodded, his expression becoming somewhat strange. "That man's name is Adam, codenamed Warlock. The data shows he's from Earth, too." "What?" Dangerbird leaped up from his throne again, his expression even more surprised than before, almost horrified. "You were talking about Warlock Adam?" Dao Jian, confused, nodded with a puzzled expression. "Yes, Warlock Adam, from Earth. How could it be him? How could it be him?" Dangerbird muttered a few words after confirming Dao Jian's name. Then, dejectedly, he sat back on the throne, waved his hand, and said weakly, "Forget it. Forget Alex. Just pretend he never existed, sister." "Why?" Lilandra's face was filled with shock at Dangerbird's words. Even the private name she used came out. Dao Jian also looked at Dangerbird in surprise. Dao Jian believed that Alex had definitely escaped from Qin prison. If that was the case, they must find Alex, no matter what. Take a look at the 6-9 book forum. After a moment, Dangerbird had almost recovered from his shock. He turned to look at Lilandra, smiled wryly, and shook his head, saying, "Do you know who Warlock Adam is?" Lilandra frowned slightly, pondering for a moment and shaking his head. A sudden thought suddenly occurred to him. Could Alex's disappearance be related to this Warlock Adam? When Thanos swept across the universe, it was him. Warlock Adam appeared and stopped Thanos, Dangerbird said without further ado, but with just one sentence. It completely stunned Lilandra and Dao Jian. Stunned, Lilandra paused for a moment before recovering, a look of disbelief on her face. "I think Alex should have returned to Earth by now," Dangerbird looked at Lilandra deeply, sighed, and said slowly, seemingly casually, "With Warlock Adam's abilities, it's easy to do that. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 257 Thanos is born. Upon hearing this, Lilandra's face was filled with dejection, her mood even more dejected. She became dazed, staring blankly at the floor, her mind unsettled. Dangerbird glanced at her sister, sighed, then turned to Daojian, frowning slightly. With a slight headache, he asked, "Daojian, what do you think we should do next?" Alex had disappeared, so the original plan was naturally impossible to succeed. "How about we find someone else?" Daojian hesitated for a moment before suggesting it. In reality, Alex wasn't a crucial part of the whole plan. Dangerbird insisted on sending Alex simply because of his ability. A different person, even one with less skill, could still successfully complete the plan, but the results would be much worse. Dangerbird was tempted, but then he shook his head again, a look of frustration on his face. Time is running out. Spartak might not be able to wait. In order to give Alex a legitimate identity, Shia had already delayed Spartak for 6 months. Any further delay would be unsuccessful. If we can't delay it any longer, then let them go. Lilandra finally regained her composure and spoke in a furious tone, a hint of barely concealed anger. Dangerbird and Daojian exchanged glances, their eyes gleaming with excitement as they shouted, "If we reject Spartacus, they'll definitely turn to the Nova Empire." 6 months had passed, and while there had been no major battles between the Kree and Skrull empires, smaller ones were constant. The Spartacus Empire, caught on the middle, was suffering from both sides, and in just 6 months, it had suffered heavy losses. If this continued, the Spartacus Empire might be wiped out before Dangerbird even agreed to an alliance. Faced with such a pressing situation, Spartacus had no choice but to find an ally quickly, one who could solve the problem. The Nova Empire, facing a similar predicament, was undoubtedly their last and only option. Daojian, recalling the Nova Empire's past actions, felt a sense of helplessness. "I'm afraid the Nova Empire won't agree." The Nova Empire, now unwilling to intervene in the war between the two empires, simply did not want to. Then light a fire. "They can't refuse." Dangerbird's face turned cold, his tone stern. Daojian nodded, turned, and headed outside, disappearing in an instant. Watching Daojian leave, Dangerbird turned to look at his sister. After a few words, Lilandra returned to her dazed state, her eyes glassy, her face frozen, looking as if she were dead. "Lilandra," Dangerbird coughed softly and spoke. Just as Dangerbird was about to offer some comfort, Daojian, who had just left, returned, his face pale, as if he had experienced a moment of immense terror. "What happened?" Dangerbird didn't bother to console his sister. Daojian's return, coupled with his expression of disbelief, made Dangerbird's heart skip a beat. He knew something terrible must have happened. Daojian appeared before Dangerbird like lightning, barely catching his breath before he shouted, "Thanos!" Daojian's name caught in his throat, the rest of the words stuck in his throat. Lilandra, lost in her own world, was disturbed by Daojian's stuttering. Her brow furrowed slightly, and with a hint of annoyance, she shouted, "Just say what you want to say. Don't hesitate." As she spoke, Lilandra subconsciously activated her telepathy, attempting to penetrate Daojian's mind. Under normal circumstances, with Daojian's strong will, Lilandra's psychic power would have been unable to penetrate his defenses. But Daojian was now in a state of panic, his mind a mess. How could he resist Lilandra's mental intrusion? Seeing the scene in Daojian's mind, Lilandra finally understood why Daojian had lost his composure. Even she was stunned by what she saw. "Can someone tell me what happened?" Dangerbird, standing nearby, saw her sister's expression and grew increasingly anxious. She couldn't help but shout. Lilandra opened her mouth to speak, but thought better of it and instead projected the scene from her mind into Dangerbird's mind, her expression grave. Dangerbird was the first to see the scene in his mind. His face froze, his eyes wide and red, filled with terror. What is he going to do now? In Dangerbird's mindscape, a towering Thanos, clad in golden armor, sat atop a massive floating throne. His white teeth peeked through his cracked mouth, a look of deep ferocity. Before Thanos, A vast starfield was shrouded in a faint purple mist. In an instant, the once vibrant starfield had fallen silent, devoid of any sense of life. Destroying the universe, isn't that his favorite thing to do? Lilandra quipped stiffly. Then, with a bitter expression and a hint of helplessness, she slowly asked, "Sister, what should we do?" During the last cosmic crisis, Thanos used his immense strength and the cosmic cube, not the Tesseract, to ravage the universe. If not for Warlock Adam's wisdom in defeating Thanos at the last moment, the entire universe would have been destroyed. Now, with Thanos back again, who will save them? Hearing Lilandra's question, Dangerbird hesitated for a moment, then turned to Daojian. Does anyone else know this news? The area of the incident is on the outskirts of the Sheer Empire, a cosmic desert. For now, no other empires should know about it. Daojian shook his head, a hint of embarrassment on his face. The area Thanos chose was a remote and impoverished land. If he hadn't been reminded, Daojian wouldn't even have known it belonged to the Sheer Empire. Dangerbird's light eyebrows unconsciously knitted together at the corners of his eyes, lingering for a moment before slowly relaxing. His tone seemed to lighten as he spoke, immediately block the news and do everything possible to lure Thanos to the Kree and the Skrull. Crisis always brings opportunity. Faced with the overwhelming power of Thanos, after initial frustration, Dangerbird immediately came up with this extremely risky plan. Unrelated sentence fragment, no mistake, one song, one post, one content, 1-6, one book, one bar, one look. Lilandra was stunned by this and, after a moment's pause, turned to try to persuade her sister. Unfortunately, Dangerbird seemed to have seen through Lilandra's thoughts long ago. He turned and walked away the moment he finished speaking, not giving Lilandra a chance to speak. Watching Dangerbird's retreating figure, Lilandra was deeply depressed. Daojian was equally frustrated. In fact, he didn't agree with Dangerbird's plan. If he wasn't careful, he might anger Thanos, which would be troublesome. But now that Dangerbird was gone, Daojian had no choice but to do as Dangerbird told him, even though he was extremely reluctant. Nothing more to say, back to updating. Chapter 258 Rising Star Core. Ultimately, news of Thanos' birth was completely suppressed. Beyond a select few, no further information circulated, and the entire universe remained in a relaxed yet tense atmosphere. On Xander, at the Nova Corps headquarters, Alex, dressed in a two-star uniform, walked through a spacious, bright corridor, occasionally turning his head to gaze out the transparent windows at the bustling city. The slight smile on his lips faded with each step, eventually turning cold. Those who have lost their memory always seek to recover what they have lost, and Alex was no exception. Over the past few months, Alex had tried many methods, but all had failed. Yet, despite this, Alex never gave up. Now, Alex was on his way to meet a master of the mind and memory, a 3-star Centurion of the Nova Corps, who might offer some help. Walking down the long corridor, Alex pushed open a door and stepped inside. "Alex, you're here." As Alex entered, a childish voice echoed, its joy barely concealed. Alex's icy face finally cracked with a smile as he gazed at the small figure squatting at the long table. "Hello, Mr. Blue Demon." While the majority of the Nova Corps were from the Nova Empire, or the Centauri, there were also members of other races, including the Blue Demon before him. Resembling a blue Pikachu, Blue Demon, though petite and adorable in appearance, was formidable in strength, a true Centurion of the Nova Corps. Combined with his race's innate psychic abilities, he was one of the most formidable of the Centurions. "Alex, what can I do for you?" Blue Demon, though a Centurion, possessed a charismatic personality, commanding a high reputation and influence within the Nova Corps, and a lover of those who were younger. Alex knew Blue Demon's character well, and without hiding anything, he expressed his desire to restore his memories. Blue Devil was stunned at this. He stared at Alex with his enormous eyes for a long moment before nodding and saying, "Okay, I'll try." Alex's reputation within the Nova Corps was legendary, not only for his incredible speed of advancement but also for his amnesia. Many initially doubted Alex's amnesia, but after several overt and covert attempts, everyone came to believe him. Then came various treatments, but unfortunately, all failed. Consequently, Blue Devil hesitated to speak out. After a few more words, Blue Devil began to attack. In the blink of an eye, Blue Devil suddenly screamed, and his petite body fell directly off the long table. Alex was completely unaware of the suddenness of the incident until Blue Devil's scream, as he hit the ground, finally woke him up. "What's wrong?" Mr. Blue Devil. Alex hurriedly helped Blue Devil onto the table, a look of deep guilt on his face. Blue Demon wiped the sweat from his forehead with his short hands, feeling as if his heart, the size of his fingernail, was about to burst out of his throat. After a long gasp, Blue Demon finally recovered. He looked up at Alex and said in disbelief, "Alex, your mind is sealed by a powerful force. I can't access your consciousness at all." So, hearing Blue Demon's slightly awkward explanation, Alex was slightly startled. Confused, he asked, "I remember that when I first woke up, I didn't seem to have this problem. In fact, after waking up, Alex attached great importance to his memory, remembering even the smallest details. Therefore, Alex remembered clearly that the doctor had easily penetrated his consciousness. Otherwise he wouldn't have discovered the confusion in his mind." Blue Demon paused, looking at Alex with disbelief. He pondered for a moment, shook his head, and slowly said, "Your situation is really strange." Seeing Blue Demon seem to fall into deep thought after this sentence, Alex knew that his trip might have been in vain. Filled with frustration, Alex excused himself and left the room. Just as he was about to leave headquarters, a piercing alarm blared throughout the vast headquarters. The slowly advancing Nova soldiers suddenly broke into trot. Alex, momentarily stunned, broke into a run as well. As he ran, Alex grabbed a nearby person and demanded, "Brother, what happened?" The man turned to look at Alex, then shook his head, his face also filled with surprise. A moment later, the entire Nova Corps assembled, led by the Centurion leader, the director of the entire Nova Corps. What on earth has happened? Seeing even the rarely seen director show up, Alex knew something major had happened, and his heart sank in his throat. It wasn't that Alex was afraid, but rather that he didn't want any surprises before he could recall the past. Just as his mind wandered, the director's slightly hoarse voice suddenly rang out. He spoke crisply, then turned and flew off first. "Nova Corps, everyone, ready to depart, everyone." Alex was stunned again. The Nova Corps had grown from its initial 500 men to tens of thousands today, with hundreds of Centurions more than enough to handle many situations. Rising stars below the rank of Centurion might not even see action in a major battle for over a decade. Yet, now, the director was demanding the entire Nova Corps, including medics fresh out of the academy. Alex didn't have time to think. Following the director's words, no one hesitated. Even the medics, barely enlisted in the Nova Corps with no stars at all, rushed to follow the director's retreating figure. Seeing this, Alex suppressed his doubts and followed the main force out of Xander. After just a short flight, Alex had unknowingly left the second echelon and entered the first. The Nova Corps power stems from Nova Force, a nearly limitless field of force generated by a super-life computer called World Will. Centurions distribute this energy according to the Nova members' ranks. While most Nova members are ordinary, Alex stands out. With the added power of Nova Force, even at only a 2-star Nova, his actual abilities far surpass those of most 3-star Centurions. This, of course, is one of the key reasons why Alex is so renowned in the Nova Corps. Alex's sudden arrival was like a bright light in the darkness, dazzling and instantly attracting everyone's attention. The director, even noticed him. After briefly understanding Alex's identity and strength, the director looked at Alex with a strange look, his slightly pale face flushed with a hint of excitement. "I'm so surprised it took 20 minutes to open the Kidian website." Chapter 259 New Centurion. Alex immediately noticed the director's intense gaze, but he paid it no mind. He'd been feeling this kind of gaze since joining the Nova Corps, especially after his superhumanly rapid promotion to 2-star Nova, but Alex wasn't surprised at all. The director saw the entire scene, and seeing Alex's calm demeanor, he felt even more impressed. After a moment's hesitation, he announced, "Effective today, Alex is promoted to Centurion of the Nova Corps." The director's voice wasn't loud, but, harnessing the power of the World Will, it radiated instantly throughout the Nova Corps, permeating the helmets of all the Nova Corps members. Alex, who had also heard the director's announcement, was initially stunned. He paused for a moment before regaining consciousness, his expressionless face filled with a lingering look of disbelief. While Alex was still in shock, someone gently nudged his frozen body. The force wasn't strong, but it was just enough to startle him awake. "Alex, what are you staring at?" "Thank you, Day." Alex snapped back to his senses. He first thanked the middle-aged man beside him who had reminded him, then turned to the director at the front of the team and nodded slightly, indicating his acceptance of the appointment. Centurions had the authority to draw upon the Nova power, and as the director commanding all Centurions, he held even greater power, able to bestow the Nova power upon anyone within the Nova Corps. However, if the other party refused, he couldn't impose it. So, even though he had announced the appointment, if Alex didn't nod in agreement, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, Alex nodded in agreement. As Alex nodded, his body began to undergo a dramatic transformation. The immense Nova power seemed to emerge from thin air and instantly infiltrate Alex. In the blink of an eye, Alex became completely different, starting with his uniform. The twin stars on his chest, symbolizing a 2-star Nova, had become 3 new stars arranged in a triangle, marking the Centurion's mark. The helmet on his head had also undergone subtle changes, becoming more complex and refined. Furthermore, Alex, already 1.85 meters tall, seemed to have grown even taller, like a spring shoot, instantly gaining another 5 centimeters, truly surpassing the 1.90 mark. Among the shorter Centauri, Alex's towering stature stood out like a crane among chickens, dazzling beyond measure. Alex's transformation naturally caught everyone's attention once again. While the Nova power could provide a Nova with nearly unlimited energy, such a direct enhancement of the body was truly unprecedented. Even the director, who had promoted Alex, was astonished. "What's going on?" "World will," the director immediately contacted the Super Life computer. Alex's aura had noticeably grown, which was undoubtedly good news for the director. However, Alex's unexpected transformation also aroused the director's vigilance. For countless years, many had coveted the Nova power, and Alex had become a target of suspicion in the director's eyes. The world will was silent for a moment before finally answering, "Alex's physique is extraordinary. Most of his cells were dormant, but they have been awakened by the Nova power, resulting in the current changes. Is there a problem?" The director listened for a moment, unconcerned about the reason for Alex's transformation. He was more concerned about Alex's reliability. The world will fell silent for a long time before speaking again, a deep voice brimming with confidence. "Although I cannot fathom his inner nature, I can clearly sense that he possesses a pure heart." The Nova director glanced at Alex with deep meaning, a subtle smile forming at the corner of his mouth. He nodded at Alex, then turned and continued to lead the Nova Corps. Meanwhile, Alex, still reeling from the infusion of Nova power, was still in shock at the changes in his body. If it weren't for Day's support, he would have been left behind. A moment later, Alex finally regained consciousness. Feeling the immense power coursing through his body, he turned to Day and cried out in terror, "Day, I feel like my body is going to explode." Alex wasn't exaggerating. Under the influence of the Nova force, all the energy he had absorbed but hadn't yet fully digested or transferred was now unleashed, the primary cause of the dramatic changes in Alex's body. However, the sheer volume of energy was too overwhelming for Alex's body to handle. Alex once possessed powerful telepathic and energy control abilities. Though he hadn't consciously considered them, these energies had been suppressed, causing no harm to Alex. But now, Alex had forgotten his identity and these two abilities, completely unaware of their use. Before the immense Nova force could infuse them, these energies had automatically fallen dormant as Alex's consciousness had vanished, but now, stimulated, they all revived. They initially ignored Alex, assuming he was merely exclaiming in amazement. But soon, they realized Alex's condition seemed grave, and he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. "Oh no! Alex is in trouble." Day's voice was loud and clear in panic, and since it concerned the newly promoted Centurion Alex, it immediately caught everyone's attention, including the director at the front of the Legion. Seeing Day's panic, the director turned to look at Alex, who stood beside him, looking utterly pale. A sudden thought struck him, and he instantly appeared beside Alex, asking in astonishment, "What's going on? What happened?" Day paused, shook his head, then nodded, speaking haltingly, "I don't really understand. Alex just suddenly became like this," and said he was going to explode. The director, unable to wait for Day's response, immediately contacted the World Will. The World Will connected every Nova, presumably knowing the most about Alex's current condition. "Everyone, stand by, guard mode, target Alex." Before the director could even ask, the voice of the World Will echoed through every Nova's mind, a serious tone tinged with a rare hint of anxiety. The director froze in shock, then, without a word, immediately followed the World Will's instructions. Following the director's actions, the other Novas naturally followed suit, unable to resist. In an instant, A marvelous scene unfolded across the vast universe. A vast army of novas joined together, forming a giant chrysalis. 3 star centurions formed the innermost layer, all the way to the outermost medics, layer upon layer of impenetrable defense. And at the center of this colossal chrysalis, Alex endured the most severe torture ever. I've almost recovered, and I'm resuming updates. One update today, and I'll start tomorrow. Chapter 260 Loss of Heart. Amidst the vast galaxy, a massive silkworm chrysalis drifted slowly amidst the pervasive cosmic storm, emitting a faint golden glow. As time passed, the golden light grew brighter, blazing like the sun. In the center of the chrysalis, dozens of centurions surrounded the unconscious Alex. The energy emanating from Alex's body continuously assaulted their weakening bodies. Seeing Alex show no signs of improvement, someone couldn't help but shout, their voices hoarse, "If this continues, we won't be able to hold on, keep going." Alex's sudden outburst took everyone by surprise, and even the experienced director was startled. If it weren't for the insistence of the super life computer, the world will, he would have given up without a second thought. While berating him, the director secretly contacted the world will once again, his anxiety growing, his tone becoming frantic. What's going on? Will it work? The energy within him is beyond imagination. The world will, seemingly oblivious to the director's complaints, remained silent for a long moment before speaking in amazement. It's better to release than to block. Such a vast energy must be released, or it will explode sooner or later. Listening to the world will's mutterings, the director couldn't help but roll his eyes. He took a deep breath and spoke again, practically shouting, "What should we do?" "Just say it, fight. Fighting is the best way to release that energy." This time, the world will responded quickly. As the director finished speaking, a voice rang out, sounding even more anxious than the director's. The director was taken aback for a moment, but then his eyes lit up, and his expression brightened. "That's easy." Without waiting for a reply from the world will, the director severed his connection with it and connected to the entire Nova Core, issuing his orders. Within minutes, the giant silkworm chrysalis, drifting in the wind, began to stir, like a rolling ant ball, advancing through the brilliant starry sky, its goal clear. Even huddled together, the Nova Core's speed was remarkably rapid. After crossing 2 small star systems, they finally came to a slow stop. "Where is this?" Bewildered, all the Nova Corps members, save for a few who knew the situation, gazed at the unfamiliar starry sky. It was a vast expanse, dotted with dozens of planets, large and small. But without exception, they all resembled a dead zone, devoid of any hint of life, and even a faintly eerie feeling. The director, naturally an insider, coughed softly as he shifted the formation, transporting Alex from the center of the sphere, and began to explain the situation. This starry sky was on the fringes of the Nova Empire, not particularly prosperous, even somewhat desolate. Yet, within this starry sky, many people still tenaciously lived, living peacefully despite the lack of prosperity. But not long ago, all these people were killed, and this region of the starry sky became a dead zone, even expanding. The Nova Corps sent over a dozen waves of personnel to investigate, but without exception, all reports were lost, with only a few scattered images transmitted back to Zendel. Amidst these fragmented images, a unique individual shocked and even panicked the Nova Corps leaders. It was precisely because of this figure that the Nova Corps mobilized its entire forces. The director glanced at the centurions around him, his expression grave. After a moment's hesitation, he slowly spoke. That man's name is Adam, Warlock Adam. Adam, most had never heard of this name and looked at each other in surprise. Amidst the majority's bewildered expressions, 5 or 6 had contorted faces, their eyes wide with terror. Adam. How could it be him? Anyone who knew Adam's name knew what he had done. How could he possibly commit such a heinous act? The director, naturally aware of the crowd's surprise, gave a wry smile, shook his head, and explained, "From what I've observed, Adam seems to be under someone's control." When they first discovered that the murderer was Adam, few believed him either. However, the various images clearly indicated that it was Adam who had committed the crime. Could it be Thanos? Someone exclaimed in shock at the director's words. The battle between Thanos and Adam had a profound impact, still etched in the memory of many. The names Adam and Thanos are entwined in everything. When you think of Adam, you immediately think of Thanos, and vice versa. The director's expression darkened, and he nodded imperceptibly. That's a possibility. He took a deep breath, then changed the subject, continuing, For now, let's not worry about Thanos. Let's stop Adam first. Adam's movements remained relentless, and the shadow of death continued to grow. It had to be contained as soon as possible. As he spoke, the director glanced at Alex, his eyes filled with worry, yet also a hint of anticipation. Facing Adam, even with the entire Nova Corps, the director felt completely unsure. But in his eyes, Alex was a rare talent, a force that could change the tide of battle. Just as he was thinking this, he suddenly felt a jolt throughout his body, and without a second thought, he issued a warning, "Be careful." Before he could finish his words, the previously tranquil universe suddenly trembled. Like boiling water, countless bubbles emerged from the dark void, suddenly appearing among the Nova Corps. Caught off guard, many Nova Corps were swallowed by the bubbles, and before they could even utter a scream, they vanished. The sudden scene stunned everyone, staring around in astonishment, panicking and dodging the bubbles that threatened to emerge at any moment. When the bubbles dissipated, and the pitch-black universe returned to calm, the vast Nova Corps had lost its initial momentum, and its personnel were reduced to less than half. Faced with such a massive loss of life, no one could remain calm. The director began to show signs of losing control, ready to fight Adam to the death. "Don't worry, they're not dead. They must have been transported to a special place." The voice of the world will came through in time, reassuring the director. Adam should be able to send them back. Upon hearing the world will's words, the enraged director immediately calmed down. He turned to look at Alex, who had become even more furious after losing his protection. With a sneer, he immediately ordered the entire Nova Corps to retreat sharply, leaving the battlefield to the two lost hearts. As the Nova Corps retreated, Alex, completely out of control, began to violently surge with energy, roiling the previously calm universe once again, even triggering a massive cosmic storm. Amidst the raging cosmic storm, a figure slowly emerged. It was none other than Warlock Adam. Surprisingly, Warlock Adam's eyes were glazed over, as if he were truly under control. "Here's the first update, and I'll keep working on the second. P.S. After a long hiatus, my typing speed has plummeted." Chapter 261 Confrontation. Pulled by the energy, the two mindless figures unknowingly converged amid a raging cosmic storm. However, as they drew closer, the world didn't calm down. Instead, it intensified. Both of them erupted with unbearable, overwhelming energy. The collision of these two equally powerful forces intensified the cosmic storm, even blowing a smaller planet off its course. Far in the distance, the remnants of the Nova retreated, and the battle between Alex and Adam could no longer be seen. Instead, they felt the relentless energy waves sweeping through them. Day struggled to steady himself, his slightly chubby face covered in sweat. He wiped it away, then spoke slowly with lingering fear. "At this distance, the impact is still so powerful. It's incredible." Day could understand Adam's power. But what he couldn't comprehend was that Alex possessed such immense energy, even comparable to Adam's. No one answered Day's question. Everyone, drawing on the power of the Nova, kept a constant watch on the battle between Alex and Adam. However, unlike most battles in the universe, the battle between Alex and Adam on the battlefield was extremely boring. There was no back-and-forth combat, no spectacular energy attacks. The two simply stood face to face, purely competing in energy, much like the internal strength contests in martial arts novels. This battle lasted for a long time, until the Nova Corps were about to lose interest when something unusual finally occurred on the battlefield. A figure suddenly appeared beside the two, standing tall amidst the raging energy and cosmic storm. This is Thanos." Seeing the sudden appearance, almost everyone in the Nova Corps exclaimed at the same time. Although the Nova Corps had many new blood and did not participate in the original battle, Thanos' name was known throughout the universe and was known to everyone. The director exclaimed in alarm, his expression utterly solemn. Without a word, he captured the scene, then, leveraging the power of the world's will, immediately relayed the news back to Xander. With a bitter sigh, he said, "The universe is about to plunge into chaos again." Day's panic quickly returned to a state of nervousness. He turned to the director and asked, worriedly, "What do we do now? Should we save Alex?" Alex was alone, facing two others, one of whom was the infamous Thanos. Day couldn't help but worry. The director hesitated. In this situation, if the Nova Corps rushed forward en masse, they would surely be annihilated. Adam alone was already a problem, and with Thanos added to the mix, the Nova Corps would surely perish. Just as the director was about to reject Day's proposal, Thanos struck, high above the battlefield, amidst the raging cosmic sky. Unlike the two mindless beings, Thanos possessed his own consciousness. As Alex and Adam's energies confronted each other, he reached out to grab Alex's head. A faint silver light shone from his azure palm, and even more refined cosmic energy seemed ready to burst forth at any moment. Alex was still unconscious, and all his previous actions had been instinctive. Facing Thanos' attack, Alex remained completely unresponsive. Thanos' massive hand finally grasped Alex's head, and the hidden cosmic energy immediately penetrated through the skin of his palm and into Alex's head. After a long wait, Thanos was surprised to see something happen. The expected scene did not occur. Alex's head remained unchanged by the cosmic energy. Huh? Thanos exclaimed in surprise, a flicker of confusion crossing his face before a faint smile appeared on his face. He declared with some pride, "In that case, from now on, you will be my second servant." As he spoke, a green gem suddenly emerged from Thanos' palm. The emerald-like gem gradually lit up, and a faint green line shot out from it, instantly piercing Alex's head. In the distance, where the Nova Corps had retreated, the Nova Corps were the first to notice the changes on the battlefield. The director was momentarily startled, then realized what was happening. Without a moment's hesitation, he immediately ordered everyone to retreat as far as possible. They didn't want to abandon Alex, but as he watched the entire Nova Corps retreat under the director's orders, he felt powerless to do anything. He could only sigh and follow the main force in its retreat. On the battlefield, Thanos paid no attention to the Nova Corps retreat, his entire focus focused on Alex. His slightly raised lips had now pursed into a straight line, the smile long gone, replaced by a solemn expression. "I never thought my mind could be so powerful." With a soft hum, Thanos moved his hand, and the green gem on his palm radiated an even brighter green light. The green line connecting Alex's head deepened and thickened. With a burst of the green gem, Alex's previously expressionless face finally showed a change. His face wrinkled tightly, a hint of pain appeared, and beads of sweat beaded on his smooth forehead. After a moment's stalemate, Alex's expression grew increasingly anguished, his face turning pale, like a sheet of paper. Yet, even so, the green line connecting Alex's head remained unbroken. Its unbroken green line indicated that Thanos was still unable to control Alex's soul. How unexpected! Thanos, instead of angry, was delighted, surveying Alex with a look of approval. As he spoke, Thanos activated a green stone once more, vowing to bring Alex under his wing. Busy activating the stone, Thanos failed to notice that, as he lowered his head, Alex's eyes, which had been tightly shut, suddenly opened. Their dark pupils shone with a brilliant starlight, as if encompassing an entire galaxy, captivating the viewer. Alex glanced around in confusion, the starlight flickering before returning to its normal black. A sense of clarity returned, as if a memory had dawned on him. Alex moved, his hands extending like lightning, instantly pressing against Thanos' body. A surge of energy flowed through his palms into Thanos' body. The devastating energy cracked Thanos' tough skin, and streams of blood flowed from the wounds. Thanos snapped back to his senses, swung his hands together, and flung Alex's arms aside. He quickly retreated, looking at him in astonishment. "You're awake." "Thank you, Thanos." Alex smiled brightly, looking at Thanos with a carefree, playful expression, but without a hint of nervousness. Thanos frowned slightly, and once again looked Alex up and down for a long moment, somewhat puzzled. "Who are you?" "Me." Alex shrugged and replied casually, "Alex, please recommend and click." Chapter 262 First Fight. Alex awakened from his coma, regaining not only his body but also his memories. The memories that had been sealed away by the chaos, the real Alex had awakened. Ultimately, all of this was thanks to Thanos, and it all began all the way back to Chien Prison. In the core wing of Chien Prison, Alex was once controlled by Thanos, relying on a consciousness seed planted deep within his soul by Nebula. This consciousness seed actually contained a wisp of Thanos' consciousness, which would automatically awaken upon contact with Adam, controlling Alex's body and communicating with him. Adam later dismissed Thanos with a wave of his hand, but he only shattered Thanos' will within the consciousness seed. The spiritual energy contained within it remained, benefiting Alex instead. Initially, this was a good thing. However, Thanos was a powerful being, possessing cosmic spiritual power. Even the wisp within the consciousness seed was too much for Alex to withstand. The immense spiritual energy spiraled out of control, ultimately causing Alex to fall into a coma after being escorted out of the core wing by Adam. Alex was unconscious, but the immense mental energy continued to assault his mind, ultimately causing confusion and amnesia. Originally, Alex's only chance of awakening was to absorb the immense mental energy within his brain. However, at that very moment, the Nova Force entered his body, causing the previously calmed mental energy to surge once again. Then, Thanos appeared, attempting to use the Soul Stone to control Alex's soul. Unfortunately, his attempt backfired, failing to control Alex and instead provoking his resistance. Under the overwhelming threat of the Soul Stone, Alex unexpectedly absorbed the entire immense mental energy within his consciousness in a matter of seconds. It sounds complex, but it's actually quite simple. Alex lost his memory because of Thanos, and regained consciousness because of him. Furthermore, this unexpected turn of events turned into a blessing in disguise, with his mental powers greatly increased, further strengthening his strength. This surge in strength instilled in Alex a surge of confidence, allowing him to face Thanos with such composure. Alex maintained a composed expression despite a whirlwind of thoughts. He surveyed Thanos, feeling a pang of disappointment. Unlike his movie counterpart, the Thanos before him was a bit too plain. Without the dazzling floating throne or the golden armor covering his entire body, he looked little more than a sturdy farmer. The only thing that caught Alex's attention was the shimmering green gem in Thanos' hand. Could this also be an Infinity Stone? Alex, after watching so many movies, couldn't help but wonder more. As far as Alex knew, there were 6 Infinity Stones: time, space, reality, mind, power, and soul. These were incredibly powerful artifacts in the Marvel Universe, possessing the power to manipulate the entire universe. The Infinity Stones were crucial props in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, appearing in nearly every film and woven throughout the plot. From the Tesseract found by Red Skull in Captain America, to the Mind Scepter in Loki's hands in the Avengers, the ether that nearly took Natalie in Thor, Ragnarok, to the Tesseract in Guardians of the Galaxy, each one represents an Infinity Stone. The Tesseract is the Space Stone, the Mind Scepter is the Mind Stone, the ether is the Reality Stone, and the Tesseract is the Power Stone. Thinking of the immense power of the Infinity Stones, Alex's gaze toward Thanos changed, a touch of greed intensified. Thanos, a man of vast cosmic reach, could hardly fail to see the depth in Alex's eyes. With a cold snort, he retracted his hand, taking the Soul Stone. He looked down at Alex, his unobstructed face brimming with cold murderous intent. Alex sensed Thanos' hostility and curled his lips imperceptibly. In a flash, he vanished from his spot, only to reappear in an instant. If it weren't for Thanos' shrewd eyes, he wouldn't have even noticed Alex's disappearance. A chill welled up in his heart, and Thanos was secretly on guard. Alex's displayed power terrified him, for he hadn't realized what it truly was. It didn't resemble teleportation at all, with no warning signs, not even a single energy fluctuation. Just as he was contemplating how to deal with Alex, Thanos suddenly realized that Adam, who had just stood beside him, had disappeared. "You did this," a racing thought crossed Thanos' mind, and he glanced at Alex again. Remembering Alex's sudden disappearance and reappearance, he knew Adam's disappearance must be related to Alex. Alex shrugged and nonchalantly asked, "Yeah, what's wrong?" Alex's teleportation abilities, boosted by a surge in telekinesis, increased not only the distance but also the speed, which was crucial for Thanos' failure to detect it. Unexpectedly, it was actually Alex, and his gaze deepened as he looked at Alex. His previously relaxed guard resurfaced, even more solemn. "You want to stop me?" Thanos' eyes narrowed slightly, his aura gradually rising. The cosmic storm that had just calmed down raged again, many times faster than before, causing Alex to shake uncontrollably. Alex was horrified, but immediately suppressed his contempt. He looked at Thanos cautiously, unleashing his full power without reservation. Unfortunately, Alex hadn't anticipated that neither the most powerful red shock beams nor the magnetically controlled silver steel balls could even approach Thanos' body, being repelled from afar. The first wave of attacks failed, and Alex immediately launched a second. But before Alex could strike, Thanos' voice rang out, laced with deep contempt. Interesting. As Thanos' voice rang out, the cosmic storm that had engulfed the entire galaxy instantly ceased, then rapidly contracted. In a flash, the entire galaxy was empty, dozens of planets vanished, and only Alex and Thanos remained in the vast universe. Before Alex could come to his senses, a huge suction force suddenly came over him. Alex looked closely and found that a palm-sized black hole had appeared in Thanos' palm, and the huge suction force was coming from the black hole. But what shocked Alex was that Thanos actually grabbed the black hole and played with it in his hand, just like a toy ball. "Fuck you," Alex couldn't help but curse, and truly realized the gap between himself and Thanos. Without thinking, he activated the teleportation and wanted to leave. No mistake. However, what made Alex speechless was that the powerful gravity of the black hole made the teleportation ineffective. This was the second time Alex encountered such a situation since he came to this world. Chapter 263, Great Defeat. Alex was somewhat panicked by the failure of his teleportation, but thankfully, having seen enough to be worldly, he quickly composed himself. After a moment's thought, he turned and followed a black hole's gravity, charging towards Thanos. Thanos' defenses were formidable, and his attacks were nearly ineffective. With no escape possible, Alex simply approached, hoping to outmaneuver Thanos in melee combat. Unfortunately, Alex didn't realize that Thanos was infinitely stronger than him. Whether it was strength, endurance, recovery, or agility, Alex couldn't defeat him at his current level. Unaware of this, Alex rushed towards Thanos with alacrity, his fists lashing out with powerful winds, aiming for his eyes. Alex knew Thanos' defenses were formidable, so he aimed his fists at his eyes. The eyes are a vital part of the human body, offering little defense. But when his fists collided with Thanos' motionless eyes, Alex knew he was wrong. The excruciating pain in his finger bones made Alex realize that there truly were people in this world who had mastered their research to the level of steel. "Die!" Thanos snorted coldly, ignoring the fist in his eye. With a thrust of his hands, he thrust a black hole he'd been toying with for so long directly into Alex's heart. Alex's face paled, and sweat poured down like rain. His heart was the first to shatter, instantly reduced to a pile of minced meat flowing into the black hole. Then followed his lungs, stomach, and other internal organs, like being fed into a meat grinder, tangling madly, awaiting their impending pulverization. Along with the excruciating pain that pierced his soul, the energy that filled Alex's body rapidly drained away, like a floodgate opened, pouring into the black hole in his abdomen. Even though Alex tried his best to stop it, there was no respite. Thanos looked Alex up and down, chuckled softly, and without attacking again, he moved and left. Alex reached out to grab Thanos, but his grasp was ultimately in vain, and his body fell involuntarily. After tumbling several times in the weightless space, Alex finally came to a stop. But by then, Alex was near death. The black hole in his heart had completely destroyed his body, leaving not even a trace of energy. In a few seconds, Alex would be completely consumed by the black hole. "I can't die." Sensing death approaching, Alex's soul, like a candle in the wind, suddenly flared with dazzling brilliance. "I want to go back to Earth. I want to see Emma and the others. I want to." His constant whispers sounded so desolate and heartbreaking in the dark and cold universe. Meanwhile, on Xander, the headquarters of the Nova Corps, the remaining Nova Corps fled back in panic, only to be greeted by the gloomy Queen Adora. "Tell me, what happened?" Adora glanced at the rising star Centaurians, her deep eyes filled with confusion and a hint of worry. Alex came back suddenly, without saying a word, and left Adam behind. The rising star director was just trying to explain the whole story when, upon hearing Adora's words, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What? Alex came back?" And with Adam, not only was the rising star director sulking, but the Centurions behind him also looked shocked. Xander was several star systems away from the incident. How did Alex get back? Seeing their expressions, Adora became even more confused and asked again, "What happened?" The rising star director immediately suppressed her shock and recounted the entire incident in detail. Adora didn't interrupt the rising star director, remaining remarkably calm even after hearing about Thanos' return. However, her flickering eyes revealed that she wasn't as composed as she appeared. "Is Adam controlled by Thanos?" Adora asked only after the Nova director paused. It was a question that concerned her deeply. Is he a threat now? After Alex had returned Adam, Adora had taken him to Nova headquarters for treatment. Adora hadn't been worried of Adam at all. The Nova director's expression changed, and after a moment's hesitation, she asked, "How is Adam now?" Adora, unaware of Adam's current condition, turned to the attendant beside her. After receiving the attendant's response, she breathed a sigh of relief before saying, "Still in a coma." After a brief pause, Adora pondered for a long moment before suddenly asking, "Is it possible to revive Adam?" Thanos had reappeared, And Adora's first thought was of Adam, the man who had once defeated Thanos. But now, Adam was controlled by Thanos. The Nova director wanted to shake her head at this. After all, it was Thanos who was controlling Adam. Saving him would be far from easy. But in a flash, Alex's figure suddenly popped up in Director Nova's mind. Thinking of the battle between Alex and Adam in the previous battle, his eyes suddenly lit up and he said excitedly, "Alex can control Adam, maybe he has a way. Where is Alex?" Speaking of Alex, Adora realized that Alex did not return with the Nova Corps. Upon hearing this, Director Nova smiled awkwardly and said bitterly, "If he hadn't held back Thanos, I'm afraid the Nova Corps would have been wiped out." "What did you say, Alex? Fighting with Thanos?" Adora looked at Director Nova in disbelief. The only impression of Alex in her mind was that of a silly young man. "He also held back Thanos and let you escape back." Although a little embarrassed, Director Nova nodded with certainty and immediately explained, "According to the will of the world, Alex is definitely not an ordinary person." Before meeting Thanos, Alex had already shown abnormalities due to the surge of Nova power in his body. After recounting Alex's deeds in detail, Director Nova paused abruptly. Thinking of the scene he saw before leaving, he suddenly became nervous again. Alex was probably no match for Thanos. Thinking of this, Director Nova's expression changed. He looked up at Adora and, with a stern expression, suggested, "Thanos has emerged with great ambitions. We must unite with other cosmic forces to stop him. Inform the Universal Council immediately of Thanos' news. We must stop him." Adora nodded, then turned to her attendants and ordered in a stern tone, "Now is not the time for a fight. Thanos is our common and only enemy." Within a few days, news of Thanos' emergence spread throughout the universe, and everyone was on edge. It had only been a dozen years since Thanos last ravaged the universe, and the devastation was still fresh in everyone's memory. On the seventh day, the Universal Council convened on Xander, attended by numerous civilizations from across the universe. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264 Black Hole. The Universal United Council convened in the Nova Corps headquarters. The attendees included the leaders of various empires across the universe, including Dangerbird, Queen of the Sheer Empire, and even representatives from the Kree and Skrull empires. Of course, none of these individuals could physically attend the meeting. It was more like a video conference, albeit one spanning the universe. Does anyone know where Thanos is now? What does he intend to do? At the head of the long conference table, an elderly man with white hair and beard demanded, coughing violently. The holographic figure trembled slightly, instantly capturing everyone's attention. The previously noisy conference room suddenly fell silent, and everyone turned to look at Adora, the Nova Queen who had convened the meeting. Dangerbird sat composedly, her almond-shaped eyes slanted upwards as she gazed at Adora with deep meaning. From time to time, she would glance in the direction of the Skrull and Kree, her expression slightly lost. Dangerbird had long known of Thanos' emergence and had concealed it, hoping to use Thanos to weaken the Skrull and Kree. But before Dangerbird could execute his plan, Adora leaked information about Thanos, leaving Dangerbird deeply frustrated and even resenting Adora. Adora, unaware of Dangerbird's intentions, felt the gazes of the crowd and immediately straightened herself, scanning the room and beginning to speak with a serious expression. By the time Adora finished speaking, everyone was stunned, even the usually nonchalant Dangerbird tensed. Even Adam Warlock, who had once defeated Thanos, had fallen. The reborn Thanos was even more terrifying than before. This was definitely not good news for the entire universe. Faced with such a powerful Thanos, no one dared to take it lightly. They put aside their thoughts and began to seriously consider the crisis at hand. As the Universal Council debated how to deal with Thanos, and as Thanos, reappearing after a few days' absence, began his carnage, the cold, silent universe of the dead zone at the border of the Nova Empire suddenly rippled, like a pebble dropped into a calm lake. The ripples quickly dissipated, but at their source, a fist-sized black hole had appeared. The black hole was tiny, but its gravity was immense. Like a whale, it devoured everything around it, from cosmic dust to stray rays of light. Everything was swallowed up, nothing could escape. As it continued to devour, the black hole gradually grew in size. As the black hole grew, Its gravity grew stronger, encompassing a wider area and absorbing more and more. It was like a vicious cycle. The ever-expanding black hole would eventually devour everything. And so it did. When the black hole expanded to over 1,000 meters in size, a planet finally succumbed to its gravity and was torn from its original orbit, sliding slowly into the depths of the black hole, eventually disappearing completely. Time slipped unnoticed as Thanos continued his carnage. The Universal Council deliberated and debated, but still had no definitive information. Many factions still clung to their hopes, believing Thanos' presence was too far from their sphere of influence, so they were reluctant to make any significant effort. After days of this entanglement, there was still no definitive news. Faced with this situation, Adora, in desperation, took the initiative to unite the Sheer Empire, the Skrull Empire, and the Kree Empire. The three empires jointly dispatched their most powerful forces to prepare to encircle and suppress Thanos. Meanwhile, the dead zone on the border of the Nova Empire, where the great battle had once raged, was now a truly dead zone. Nothing existed, not even a planet or a speck of cosmic dust. Even the black hole that had appeared before had vanished, as if it had never existed. Suddenly, a figure suddenly appeared in the dead silence of the universe. It was none other than Alex, who had previously died in Thanos' black hole. But for some unknown reason, he had returned from the dead. And judging by his aura, Alex seemed several times more powerful than before, his every move seeming to move the entire starry sky. Finally, "I'm alive again," Alex's increasingly hardened features softened as he surveyed his surroundings. His deep eyes gleamed with a captivating brilliance, like the stars in the night sky, dazzling and dazzling. Thinking back to his experiences recently, Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. Transmigrating and being reborn was miraculous enough, but Alex hadn't imagined that one day he would merge with a black hole. Truly, there's no such thing as the most amazing, only the most amazing. The view flashed back to the initial battle. After Alex was easily subdued by Thanos, Thanos thrust a black hole directly into Alex's heart. The black hole, as expected, destroyed Alex's body and everything else. Alex's fate was initially certain. However, driven by a fierce will to survive, Alex refused to accept demise and desperately tried to stop the black hole. This led to something truly remarkable. After all his abilities failed, Alex began to exert his telepathic control, attempting to stop a black hole. Unexpectedly, the psychic force imbued with Alex's fierce will underwent an unexpected transformation upon contact with a black hole, and the two merged. Faced with this situation, Alex immediately sought to sever the connection. After the fusion, Alex felt as if his soul would be devoured by the black hole. But Alex's struggle was futile. Eventually, as Alex's body completely crumbled into dust and merged into the black hole, his soul also merged with it. At this moment, Alex unexpectedly discovered that his fusion with the black hole was more like the experience on Earth, when, due to the Black Queen's conspiracy, his body was frozen and Alex had to transfer his consciousness to another body. Consciousness transfer, Zora's coined term popped into Alex's mind, but his confusion grew. Can a black hole host consciousness? No one could answer Alex's question. Alex gradually adapted to his new body and began to try to control it. Unfortunately, during that initial period, Alex was completely powerless to control it, and could only allow it to devour him crazily. As the energy within his body continued to increase, the black hole's size grew larger and larger, and Alex finally achieved complete control over his body. Now, Alex can control the black hole's size and gravity at will. The black hole is Alex, and Alex is also the black hole. Chapter 265 Return. Alex restrained the overwhelming gravity of the black hole within him, twisting his body slightly, carefully sensing it for a moment, then vanished from his position. When he reappeared, Alex had already returned to Xander. Alex made no effort to conceal his aura, even intentionally radiating some. Therefore, his immediate appearance on Xander immediately attracted considerable attention. "Is this Alex?" Two voices echoed simultaneously at Nova Corps headquarters, one from Adora and the other from Daojian. Their appearances and auras were distinct, but at that moment, their expressions were nearly identical, filled with confusion and astonishment. With the Universal Council in action, the Sheer Empire, the Nova Empire, and other powers in Thanos' area united, secretly preparing to fight Thanos. To this end, Dangerbird dispatched Daojian, the captain of the Imperial Guard, along with most of the other Imperial Guard members. Dao Jian and Adora exchanged glances upon hearing each other's voices, their faces etched with a strange expression. Just as the two were lost in thought, a figure suddenly appeared from the silent room. Tall and handsome, a faint smile graced his features. It was none other than Alex. Alex, with a smile, swept across the room and greeted Dao Jian and Adora. "Everyone, I'm back." Alex's telepathic power had vastly improved. With a single thought, the entire Xander planet was enveloped in his power, making it easy for him to locate Dao Jian, Adora, and the others. Dao Jian and Adora exchanged a glance, each stunned. Alex's aura was truly incredible, especially for Dao Jian, who knew him well. He had never imagined such tremendous progress in just 1 year. Alex stared at the stunned two, about to offer a few words of teasing, when a figure suddenly rushed out from a corner, slamming directly into Alex's arms and interrupting him before he could even finish his words. Before Alex could recover, a tearful female voice echoed from within his arms. "Alex, are you still alive?" Hearing the familiar voice, Alex immediately knew who it was, Princess Charla of the Nova Empire. Looking down, Charla, her face tearful, gazed at him pitifully, like a drenched kitten, adorable and endearing. Gently wiping the tears from Charla's cheek and whispering a few words of comfort, Alex gently released Charla's embrace. Turning to Dao Jian and Adora, he asked seriously, "I wonder where Adam is now." In his previous life, Alex hadn't even had a girlfriend. But in this one, he'd accumulated countless lifetimes of romantic luck, and women kept appearing around him. This weighed heavily on Alex, and his luck was threatening to turn into a romantic disaster. With Emma and a few other women, Alex felt content and didn't want to mess with other women. Alex was grateful to Charla, but that was all, so he could only apologize. Sharapova, unaware of Alex's thoughts, saw him immediately busy with work upon his return. A flicker of resentment flashed through her tearful eyes, then quickly transformed into a beautiful smile. She muttered to herself, as expected of the man Sharapova chooses. "He's so responsible." Alex, unaware of Sharapova's thoughts, bowed and thanked Adora upon hearing her response, then vanished from the scene. Dujian and Adora exchanged a glance, then, with a gleam of brilliance, abandoned their concerns about Alex and continued to gather the others to discuss Thanos' situation. However, secretly, both were closely monitoring Alex's movements. Alex fled Nova headquarters as if fleeing, appearing directly at the spot where Adam lay unconscious. Adam had been in a coma since Alex had snatched him from Thanos' clutches. Therefore, it was impossible to determine Adam's current condition. As a precaution, Adora had Adam placed in a heavily guarded, top-secret location, both to prevent Thanos from finding him and to prevent him from waking and causing harm. Alex evaded the guards and easily made his way to Adam's unconscious place. He surveyed Adam for a long moment, his brow furrowing ever deeper. Then, staring deeply at Adam's closed eyes, a bitter expression tinged with resignation crossed Alex's face. A moment's silence morphed into a long, regretful sigh. Adam's condition was far beyond Alex's expectations. Even with Alex's current psychic powers, he couldn't awaken him. Adam was missing something, his soul. Without it, even Alex's immense psychic powers were powerless. "Looks like I'll have to turn to Thanos." He glanced back at Adam one last time, a plan already forming. With this thought, Alex flashed back to Nova headquarters. Dao Jian and Adora, anxiously waiting, immediately abandoned the others and rushed over to Alex upon his arrival. "Alex, what's going on?" "Something's going on." Alex frowned, realizing what they were asking. After a moment's pause, a bitter expression on his face, he shook his head and began to explain. "Only by defeating Thanos can Adam awaken." Alex didn't elaborate, simply outlining the consequences. With that, before Dao Jian and Adora could speak again, Alex took the lead and asked, "By the way, how are your discussions going?" Defeating Thanos alone was impossible for Alex, so he needed to gather as many helpers as possible. Of course, these helpers had to be incredibly skilled. Unrelated sentence fragment, 69. Upon hearing Alex's question, Dao Jian and Adora exchanged another glance, their faces slightly awkward. Even if the Universal United Council was abandoned, the situation became simpler and clearer, but the alliance led by the Nova Empire was unable to come up with a perfect solution. Each empire had its own ulterior motives and did not want to deplete its own strength. Alex glanced at Dao Jian and Adora, his mind already clear. He snorted coldly and threatened, "You all know Thanos' strength. If you continue to quarrel like this, no one will escape." Thanos' power is undeniable, and now he has obtained an Infinity Stone that can control souls. This Thanos will only be more terrifying. As he spoke, Alex radiated his full aura, the overwhelming pressure so overwhelming that everyone present could not breathe, and they looked at Alex with horror. Alex remained unmoved, gradually increasing his aura, and continued to say, "Thanos is 1,000,000 times more powerful than I am now." Chapter 266 Countermeasures. Although he had luckily merged with a black hole and his strength had skyrocketed again, Alex knew that he was still far from a match for Thanos. Moreover, Thanos still had the Soul Stone in his hand. If a fight really came to a head, Alex's chances of winning were slim to none. Everyone in the huge conference room stared at Alex in shock, with Dao Jian and Charlotte's expression standing out the most. Charlotte was shocked because she had never seen Alex so powerful, and Dao Jian was genuinely shocked that Thanos, whom Alex had described as 1,000,000 times more powerful than him, everyone present knew that Thanos was powerful and terrifying, but few had actually witnessed his true strength. With Alex's words, coupled with the aura Alex exuded, everyone finally had a comprehensive understanding of Thanos' strength. For a moment, everyone fell silent, and their hearts began to worry. Adora's sharp eyes swept over the crowd, pleased with their change. With a light cough, she caught everyone's attention before slowly speaking, "We absolutely cannot take Thanos' threat lightly. What are your thoughts?" Previously, the same words would only elicit evasive, irrelevant comments. But now, everyone was solemnly engaged in the discussion, daring not to be perfunctory. Alex glanced at the group, then said nothing, ignoring the others as he walked straight to a chair in the corner and sat down. Adora glanced at Alex but ignored him, continuing her discussion. Dao Jian hesitated for a moment, then gave a few instructions to those around him before turning and walking over to Alex. Given Alex's current strength, Dao Jian wasn't concerned about the consequences of revealing Alex's identity. He walked over to Alex and sat down. What's happened these past few years? Dao Jian felt several eyes on him, but ignored them. He glanced at Alex and asked, a hint of confusion and curiosity on his tough face. Alex's lips curled slightly, and with a soft breath, he smiled and briefly recounted the events of the past year. After years of being together, Alex had grown immensely trusting of Dao Jian. Dao Jian nodded with a sigh of admiration, then explained with a gloomy expression, "Ever since that battle, Thanos has become elusive, like a guerrilla fighter, wreaking havoc in the surrounding star systems. For so many years, we've been completely helpless against him." Alex listened, nodding repeatedly, his eyes shifting as if in deep thought. But at Dao Jian's last words, he froze, staring at him in astonishment, a touch of disbelief and a touch of fear. All these years, according to Earth's calculations, it's been almost 20 years since the last battle between the Nova Corps and Thanos. Dao Jian, observing Alex's panic, instantly understood what Alex was thinking. He smiled bitterly, not deliberately concealing anything. 20 years, Alex suddenly leaped from his chair, repeating the words unconsciously. Then, as if his body had lost its support, he slunk back down, his face filled with agony. Why is this happening? Alex's first thought was of the time he'd been swallowed by the black hole and then merged with it. While it seemed like a short amount of time to Alex, on the completed timeline, a single second could easily have been a year. The thought deepened Alex's anguish, and within that anguish, his hatred for Thanos intensified. Alex blamed Thanos for everything. If it weren't for Thanos, Alex believed he'd have returned to Earth long ago. Alex's boundless hatred for Thanos intensified, and his aura grew stronger. A powerful pressure erupted unconsciously, overwhelming everyone present, making it difficult to breathe. Even Dao Jian struggled to hold on. "Alex, wake up!" Dao Jian, sensing Alex's abnormality, shouted. He was truly afraid that if Alex continued to rage like this, someone present would collapse and die, which would be disastrous. Dao Jian's shout was timely, and Alex jolted awake instantly. Noticing the changes around him, he quickly withdrew his aura, acting as if nothing had happened. Alex ignored the horrified glances, his expression coldly scanning the room before finally fixing his gaze on Adora. He asked coldly, "How's the discussion going?" His voice was calm, but the urgency was palpable. With Alex's current strength, a direct return to Earth was impossible. He would need to use the Empire's Stargate or Atom's help. However, Atom's soul was in Thanos' hands, and given the Empire's current state and needs, they wouldn't allow Alex to leave. Therefore, Alex had no choice but to quickly resolve Thanos' threat. Everyone was stunned by his words and turned to look at Adora. Adora hesitated for a moment, then asked, "Alex, what are your thoughts?" In truth, before Alex's arrival, the Alliance's sole focus was to expel Thanos from their own star system. After all, even a combined empire couldn't threaten Thanos. Alex bluntly declared, "All Nova power is at my disposal. I'll deal with Thanos." To quickly resolve the threat of Thanos, Alex decided to take a risk. Realizing he had wasted over 20 years for no reason, Alex abandoned all else and simply hoped to return to Earth as soon as possible. The Nova Corps' current might is entirely due to the power of Nova. As a former Nova Corps member, even rising to the rank of 3-star Centurion, Alex knew the power of Nova. If he could harness the full power of Nova, Alex was 7 times certain of defeating Thanos. However, to do so, Alex would have to take a significant risk. Because the power of the Nova is so immense, if it were concentrated entirely in one person, being able to control it wouldn't be a big deal. The key issue would be whether Alex's body could withstand it. If things went wrong, Alex would almost explode and die, just like when he was promoted to 3-star Centurion. After hearing Alex's words, everyone in the room was stunned, then turned to look at Adora, their faces filled with excitement. For them, if Alex's plan succeeded, everyone would be happy. Even if it failed, they wouldn't lose anything, and they were very happy to support Alex. Adora hesitated, however. The Nova Corps was the key to Xander's dominance in the universe. Without the power of the Nova Corps might even be inferior to the space pirates, so Adora had to be cautious. Seeing Adora's lack of response, Alex grew anxious. After a moment's thought, he changed his tone. "How about this? The will of the world remains under your control. You allocate all of the Nova power to me. As the Queen of Xander, Adora holds supreme leadership over the entire Nova Corps and possesses absolute control over the will of the super-life computer world." Okay, hearing Alex's words, Adora no longer hesitated and immediately agreed. September begins anew. Scorpio resumes updates, striving for perfect attendance. Chapter 267 World Whale. Alex was startled by Adora's words. He hadn't expected Adora to be so straightforward. He had just been about to continue his persuasion. Just as he was surprised, Adora's voice rang out again. "But I have one condition." Her voice was resounding, firm and unyielding. "You say?" Alex frowned slightly, hesitated for a moment, and nodded. "The Soul Stone must be handed over to our Nova Empire." Adora glanced at Alex, then turned her gaze to the others present, her eyes piercing the depths of everyone's soul. Hearing Adora's words, Alex couldn't help but laugh. Adora was worthy of being the ruler of a nation, already coveting the Soul Stone. But Alex didn't care at all. First, Alex couldn't decide the Soul Stone's ownership. It depended on the opinions of the other empires, even if Alex defeated Thanos. Second, Alex knew that the Infinity Stones were a disaster. Keeping them would be useless and would only bring endless disasters. It was better not to have them. Alex didn't care, but those who knew the Soul Stone's power leaped to their feet, equally coveting it. "If you don't agree, then we'll all die together." Seeing almost everyone protest, Adora's face suddenly fell. With a cold snort, she sat down, completely ignoring the stunned crowd. It had to be said that Adora's words were absolutely devastating. They had been harassed by Thanos for nearly 20 years, with no recourse at all. If this continued, the nation would be ruined. Now that they had finally found a breakthrough, they were truly reluctant to give up. Alex also sat down quietly, his previous anxiety gone. Instead, he calmly watched the group stare at each other, seemingly communicating something through their eyes. In just a moment, the group seemed to have made a choice, and one of them, chosen as their representative, spoke out. "The Soul Stone can be given to the Nova Empire, but everything else on Thanos' person will belong to us." Thanos' dominance of the universe was not only based on his strength, but also on his influence. Thanos possessed many cosmic secrets and technologies, a significant allure for numerous space empires. Adora, clearly aware of this, hesitated for a moment before nodding her agreement. Seeing the agreement reached, Alex coughed and slowly stood up. His gaze swept across the group, finally landing on Adora. He said calmly, "Now that we've settled everything, let's get started." Alex turned to the others and continued with a playful expression, "I hope to find Thanos by the time I've absorbed the Nova Force." Without waiting for anyone to speak, Alex walked out first. Adora followed suit, standing up and walking out, leaving everyone staring at each other in bewilderment. How could they possibly know Thanos' whereabouts? Sharapova, having received a harsh reprimand from her mother, Adora, for her earlier impulsiveness, had been forcing herself to hold back from communicating with Alex. As they left the conference room, Sharapova finally couldn't help but ask, filled with worry, "Alex, are you really going to do this?" Alex paused, turning to look at Sharapova, who was beside her. Seeing her worried expression, her heart tightened. She nodded silently and turned to walk away. Sharapova stared at Alex's back in shock, her face filled with disbelief. Although Alex had been a bit cold in the past, he would never ignore her like this. Thinking of this, Sharapova couldn't help but feel sad, her eyes welling up, as if something was slipping away from her. "Sharapova, he's not the same Alex anymore." Adora patted her daughter's shoulder gently, soothing her. "He must be remembering the past, that he's not right for you anymore." "Why?" Sharapova finally couldn't hold back her tears, looking at her mother with tears in her eyes, somewhat unwillingly asking. Adora shook her head without saying anything, quickly catching up with Alex, and disappeared down the hallway in an instant. A few minutes later, Alex followed Adora to the basement of Nova Corps. After flipping a hidden switch, a small elevator appeared embedded in the wall. "What is this?" Alex hesitated, looking at the cramped, enclosed elevator, barely wide enough for 3 or 4 people standing, his heart filled with confusion. Adora glanced at Alex and entered the elevator first. Seeing Alex follow, she explained, "To possess the 10,000 stars power, the will of the world itself must grant its permission. Even I can't influence its will, at most, I can only offer a suggestion." Alex's frown deepened, and he said with some disappointment, "What I mean is, it's still unclear whether I can obtain the 10,000 stars power." Alex had only been in the Nova Corps for a little over 6 months, and he still didn't understand many things, let alone such a cryptic matter. "I think you have a good grasp of it," Adora said, her face filled with assurance, as she surveyed Alex. Alex curled his lips imperceptibly but remained silent, instead secretly channeling his own energy to continuously strengthen his new body. The power of the myriad stars was no joke, and Alex didn't want to be annihilated by the explosive energy. The elevator carried Alex and Adora downwards. An indefinite amount of time passed. Even as Alex strengthened his body with the last ounce of excess energy, the elevator continued its descent. "Where are we going?" Alex roughly estimated. In that short while, the elevator had carried them at least tens of thousands of meters. Adora glanced at Alex meaningfully, not trying to hide the truth. With a chuckle, she explained, "The center of the earth." Alex stared at Adora in astonishment, speechless for a long moment. After an indefinite amount of time, the elevator finally stopped. Alex followed Adora out. What they saw wasn't the geothermal lava they'd imagined, but a vast spherical space. A series of suspended wooden stairs led from the elevator exit all the way to the center of the sphere, where a massive shadow loomed. "That's the super life computer, the world will." Adora led the way up the ladder, her steps swift, and in a flash, she arrived before the world will. Alex followed behind, and as they got closer, Alex finally laid eyes on the super life computer known as the world will. Although he couldn't discern its exact structure, Alex was deeply moved upon seeing its true form for the first time. "Little one, we finally meet." Just then, the giant fleshy ball suddenly began to stir, and a human face emerged, its kindly features instantly captivating. "I remember the last time we met, you were still unconscious." Alex snapped back to reality and smiled sheepishly, realizing the world will was referring to his promotion to 3-star Centurion. Remembering the danger he'd faced, Alex immediately tensed up and offered a heartfelt thank you. "Thank you for saving my life. Here comes the second update, and we'll resume updating. Hope you'll support us." Chapter 268 The Power of 10,000 Stars, Part 1. The face on the giant flesh ball magically wrinkled together, forming a kind smile, and a kind laugh followed. "Little one, I'm very optimistic about you." Alex frowned in surprise at this, looking up at the flesh ball with a puzzled look. "World will, I'm sure you understand the purpose of our visit, don't you know?" Adora, seeing that World will seemed to be about to have a deep conversation with Alex, quickly interrupted and brought the conversation back to the point. Upon hearing this, the face on the flesh ball suddenly grew serious, seemingly lost in deep thought. After a moment, he spoke again. "It's possible, but it's extremely dangerous. I don't recommend it." The world will paused, then deliberated, continuing, "If Thanos wanted to destroy the universe, he would have done so long ago. His delay suggests he has other motives." "There's no need to rush, Alex," Upon hearing this, immediately grew anxious. Turning his head, he noticed the agitated expression on Adora's face. He quickly stepped forward and loudly argued, "Whatever Thanos's schemes are, the sooner they are resolved, the better." Alex, fearing the world will might say something more, added, "Inheriting the power of the myriad stars is my own request. I believe I can bear it and control it." Hearing Alex's words, Adora, who had been tempted, immediately snapped back to her senses. Although Thanos hadn't made a major move to destroy the universe in recent years, he had constantly engaged in smaller actions, causing considerable damage to the Nova Empire and the surrounding space empires, causing significant damage to their national strength and economies. If Thanos could be dealt with sooner rather than later, Adora would absolutely support him wholeheartedly. Seeing Adora's expression, the world will understood her choice. With a soft sigh, it turned to Alex, surveyed him, and said solemnly, "Since that's the case, then get ready." Hearing the world will's words, Alex immediately tense up, constantly adjusting his form, striving to be in the most perfect condition possible. "Here we go." Seeing Alex ready, the world will shouted again. The human face on the giant fleshy ball quickly vanished, then began to spin rapidly. As the fleshy ball spun faster and faster, it unexpectedly shrank. The entire underground spherical space shook violently, spinning. Alex struggled to control his body, glancing at the world will and in the surrounding space, his face filled with confusion. The world will's actions left Alex deeply perplexed. This was a stark contrast to the carefree attitude he had displayed upon his promotion to a 3-star Centurion, revealing a subtle mystery that was difficult to detect. Just as Alex was puzzled, a wound the size of an arm's thumb suddenly opened on the fleshy body of the world will. The silver wound seemed incongruous, like a sudden ornamentation embedded in the flesh. "Put your hand in," the world will's voice suddenly rang out. No longer the old, kind voice it had previously possessed, its powerful voice now tinged with a hint of nervousness. Alex didn't have time to think. His right hand instinctively thrust forward, his slender index finger first digging into the silver wound. A stinging pain pierced through the tip of his index finger. Alex instinctively tried to withdraw his right hand, but found it was fixed in the wound, unable to move at all. Furthermore, the stinging pain on Alex's fingertip intensified, like the rising tide, constantly impacting Alex's pain nerves and penetrating the depths of his consciousness, making it impossible to escape. "Hold on," the world will's voice rang out again, its calm tone tinged with a deep sense of weakness. It seemed the previous action had been a great test for it. Alex's body trembled at the words, his consciousness, nearly drowned in a tidal wave of pain, instantly snapping to consciousness. However, before Alex could demonstrate his fortitude, the moment-gathered consciousness was shattered by even more intense pain. Fortunately, Alex didn't give in. He managed to steady his mind for a moment. Though it was soon shattered again, as time passed, Alex's consciousness grew stronger and stronger, enduring the tidal wave of pain for longer and longer periods. Finally, no matter how intense the pain, it couldn't move Alex at all. "Excellent, congratulations on passing the first level." Alex was ecstatic, believing he had successfully received the power of the 10,000 stars. The world will's words cast Alex into the abyss. "Just 2 more levels, and you'll succeed." Before Alex could even utter a curse, a tremendous force surged through his right index finger, piercing his body. The fierce impact sent Alex's entire body levitating. If it weren't for the suction on his index finger, Alex would have been blown away. "Do your best to maintain your body," the world will's voice rang out again, solemnly. "The longer you persevere, the greater the Nova power you will ultimately inherit." Before Alex could recover from the sudden change, a tremendous force surged through his body, crushing everything in its path. In an instant, Alex's internal organs were ripped to shreds, transforming into pure energy that continuously dissipated out of his body. The horrific destruction was so swift that Alex didn't even have time to feel the pain of his body being destroyed. But this was a good thing. Alex could focus on maintaining his body. Alex had lived in an energy body for a long time, so he wasn't overly alarmed by the changes within. Relying on energy control and his absolute understanding of his body, Alex easily maintained his body. "I didn't expect you to have such a skill." Alex's ease in resolving the crisis surprised even the world will, which was preparing to take covert action. Alex chuckled, his face relaxed. "Is this the second stage?" As soon as Alex finished speaking, a force even stronger than before struck again, catching Alex off guard and causing the body he had just held together to disintegrate. "That's a bit too strong," Alex muttered calmly, his body, which had been disintegrating into dust, to coalesce again. After several consecutive blows, the relentless force finally subsided, and Alex, with a look of nervousness on his face, finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the later stages, the intervals between the force attacks became shorter and shorter, leaving Alex with no time to maintain his balance. "My will and body have been tested." Alex restored his body to the most perfect state at an extremely fast speed, then looked up at the will of the world, and asked with some hope and fear, "What is the last level?" The old face appeared on the meatball again, with a smile on his face, looking at Alex approvingly and said, "Congratulations, you have successfully completed the test, and are ready to accept the power of 10,000 stars, successful." Alex looked at the will of the world in disbelief. And although he was stunned, he was still full of joy, and urged impatiently, "Hurry, give it to me, here it comes, the first update is here, please recommend and click." Chapter 269 The Power of 10,000 Stars, Part 2. As the world will finished speaking, the vast spherical space suddenly lit up with countless brilliant golden rays. The endless, sourceless golden light refracted through the space, finally converging on Alex. Alex was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized, this must be the power of the myriad stars. As the golden light continued to absorb his body, Alex felt a warmth spread throughout his body, like basking in the cold winter sun for a month, a comfort he had never experienced before. Furthermore, as the warmth grew, Alex noticed that his energy was increasing exponentially, with a seemingly endless surge. Feeling the changes within him, Alex couldn't help but close his eyes in joy, already imagining himself defeating Thanos and returning to Earth. Beyond his excitement, Alex was filled with guilt and an uncontrollable fear. After a 10-year sleep, Alex had vowed to stay by their side forever. But now, after nearly 30 years of wandering the universe, Alex didn't know how to face them. Tormented by the dual torment of anticipation and agony, Alex even forgot his current situation, his mind a turmoil. After an unknown amount of time, Alex suddenly awoke, stunned to discover he had inherited the power of the myriad stars. Never mind, things will work out in the end. With this reassuring thought, Alex instantly regained consciousness, his entire being radiating a fierceness, like a sword unsheathed, radiating unparalleled sharpness. "Congratulations, Alex," the voice of the world will rang out, its aged voice brimming with confidence. "You are now undoubtedly the strongest in the universe. Thanos is no match for you." Alex chuckled softly at the words, his eyes shifting. His powerful aura vanished in an instant, but his demeanor became even more striking, imbued with the air of a master returning to his roots. "Wait for my good news." Alex vanished from his spot as he reappeared at Nova Corps headquarters. With a single thought, Alex grasped the thoughts of every being on the planet Xander. Even the mightiest of swordsmen could not escape his detection. If Alex so desired, he could know everyone's secrets, no matter what. However, Alex chose not to do so, instead focusing his efforts on finding information about Thanos. In a split second, Alex found his culprit. Thanos had an undercover agent on Xander, one controlled by the Soul Stone, and one who is close to Dora. Before Alex could detect any abnormality in this person, any concealment now seemed meaningless to him. The person controlled by the Soul Stone was merely a walking corpse, a puppet in Thanos' hands. It was impossible to learn anything about Thanos from this puppet. However, Alex could sense the subtle connection between the Soul Stone and the puppet. Following the clues, he was certain to find the Soul Stone, and finding the Soul Stone would naturally lead to finding Thanos. After considerable effort, Alex finally located Thanos, and a great battle ensued. Thanos was truly formidable. Even after inheriting the power of the myriad planets, Alex, now vastly stronger, was unable to defeat him. Instead, Thanos gained the upper hand. "If that's all you've got, I'll kill you all over again," Thanos grumbled, his eyes gleaming with overwhelming confidence. Alex stared at Thanos with bitterness, his heart sinking to the bottom. A wave of despair enveloped him, the coldness of it sending shivers down his spine. "Are you just going to give up like this?" Just as Alex's heart was about to sink to the depths, a voice echoed within him, deafening. "Don't you want to return to Earth? Don't you want to see Emma and the others again?" The barrage of questions left Alex at a loss for words. He remained stunned for a moment, finally coming to his senses. With a hint of stubbornness, he cursed fiercely, "Thanos, I'll kill you." With a roar, Alex, like a withered tree reborn, his previously shattered aura bursting forth again, even more powerful than before. The two figures collided once more in the pitch-black universe, and an even more intense battle erupted. The entire universe was emptied of starlight, leaving not a single planet visible for tens of thousands of light years. After an unknown amount of time, the turbulent universe finally quieted. Only one of the two men remained standing, the other collapsed. As his gaze drew closer, he saw that the man lying beside him was Thanos. "I win." Alex grabbed Thanos by the chest and lifted him up, gasping for air, his face brimming with excitement before quickly turning melancholic. "Now, I can go home." Alex returned to Nova headquarters with Thanos. Ignoring the congratulatory crowd, Alex handed Thanos to a door and vanished again, reappearing beside Adam. With Thanos defeated and freed from the Soul Stone's control, Adam awoke from his coma. Alex eagerly helped Adam, who was still unresponsive, to his feet, saying eagerly, "Adam, take me back to Earth." Adam's unfocused eyes gradually focused. Hearing Alex's voice, he instinctively turned his head, looked him over, and said, "With your current strength, you can definitely get back on your own." Alex was stunned when he heard this, but then he reacted and quickly dispelled the power of the myriad stars in his body, then looked at Adam again. Adam frowned at Alex, then nodded in surprise. With a wave of his hand, a beam of light enveloped Alex. Before Alex could react, the light swept Alex away into the starry sky. After wandering through the darkness for a long time, a beam of light appeared before his eyes, and Alex subconsciously rushed towards it. When the darkness dissipated, Alex felt the endless light and opened his eyes greedily. When Alex saw the space he was in clearly, he was stunned. Because what appeared before him was not the familiar Earth, but the spherical space deep underground in the Xander planet, where the will of the super-life computer world resided. What happened? Alex looked around in confusion, completely confused as to why Adam had sent him there. Just when Alex was confused, the voice of the world will rang out, "Congratulations, Alex, you have successfully passed the third level." The third level? Alex was slightly startled, then immediately came to his senses and asked with a hint of anger, "Everything just now was fake." Just a test. The world will did not answer Alex's question, but chuckled and said, "Get ready to accept the power of 10,000 stars, little guy." Second update, Scorpio is working hard to maintain the update. Chapter 270, Battle with Thanos, Part 1. Before Alex could say anything, the scene he'd thought was just a dream suddenly materialized before his eyes. The vast, spherical underground space was filled with a pervasive golden light. Just as Alex was lost in confusion, the voice of the world will rang out, "Little one, this time it's real." The world will then chuckled, its voice slightly treacherous, a hint of anticipation. Alex ignored the world will's laughter, instead reminiscing about his dream and asking uncertainly, "Is this another test?" As soon as he finished speaking, the golden light refracting through the space suddenly intensified, transforming the entire space into a golden world, immersing Alex's body in the same golden hue. What's going on? Alex looked down at himself, only to be surprised to find his body disappearing, vanishing in the golden light. "The power of the Nova comes from a unique power field," the world will's voice echoed, its serious tone tinged with solemnity. "To inherit the power of the 10,000 stars, one must merge with this power field." Could this be that power field? Alex's mind raced, a possibility immediately coming to mind, his face filled with surprise. "Of course not," the world will immediately dismissed Alex's speculation, explaining, "But it's almost the same. This is a power field simulated using the power of the Nova." With a similar effect, Alex shrugged and fell silent, quietly waiting for the fusion process to complete. In the blink of an eye, Alex realized that his body had completely vanished, leaving only his powerful consciousness wandering aimlessly in this golden space. After waiting for a long time with no further response, Alex anxiously asked, "What should we do next?" "You're awake." Hearing Alex's voice, the world will was extremely surprised and couldn't help but exclaim. Alex was a bit surprised, but he still explained, "I've been awake the whole time." "Okay, I have to admire you. Your mental strength is simply unparalleled." The world will was stunned, then said in admiration, "Since you're awake, then absorb the power of the new star and recondense your body. You should have said so sooner." Alex scolded him unhappily, then immediately set to work. Like a whale swallowing the sea, the vast golden space was empty in an instant. A slender figure stood in the center, radiating a faint golden light, like a legendary god. This person was none other than Alex, reborn from the ashes, inheriting the power of the myriad stars. Alex was stunned for a moment before regaining consciousness. He looked down at himself, secretly examining his body. His calm body concealed immense power unimaginable to ordinary people. Alex even worried that a single step could cause a terrifying, devastating effect. "Get used to it first," the World Will's voice echoed again, filled with joy. Alex didn't refuse. This was a necessary process. Thanks to his extensive combat experience and diverse abilities, Alex fully adapted in less than 10 minutes. His efficiency once again astonished the World's Will. "Wait for me." With a single word, Alex left the spherical space and reappeared in the outer space of Xander. Looking down at the vibrant green planet beneath his feet, a flicker of hope crossed Alex's face. "I hope that test wasn't a lie." Finding no news from Nova Corps headquarters, Alex could only hope for an undercover agent on Xander, just as he had during the test. Perhaps by fate. Alex's telekinesis scanned the entire Xander planet and unexpectedly discovered a puppet controlled by Thanos. Thinking of the final outcome of the test, Alex couldn't help but feel excited and whispered, "A good omen." As he spoke, Alex flashed and appeared beside the puppet in an instant, a faint smile lingering on his face. But then, Alex noticed something strange. He couldn't sense a connection to the soul stone on the puppet. "What should I do?" Alex was stunned. Just as Alex was at a loss for words, Dao Jian suddenly appeared beside him. "How did you find this place?" Dao Jian glanced at the puppet, then turned to Alex, explaining with a wry smile, "We've known about this guy for a long time, but there's nothing we can do about it." Hearing Dao Jian's words, Alex was stunned. He turned around and looked around, asking in disbelief, "We knew about it a long time ago?" Watching Alex's actions, Dao Jian's face was bitter. He shook his head and said, "This guy is endless. If we kill one, another will pop up soon." Dao Jian spread his hands and said with a hint of resignation, "In the end, there's really no other way. I'll just keep this one here and keep it under my watch." Alex looked the puppet up and down, pondering for a moment. Suddenly, he raised his hand, and the puppet's body turned into a pile of ash, which was blown away by the wind and disappeared. "Go find the next one." Alex kept an eye on the puppet, even tracking the movement of every speck of dust. Dao Jian hadn't anticipated Alex's sudden attack, and even trying to stop him proved ineffective. He was about to try to dissuade him when he heard Alex's words, startling him. "Can you find the next one? Follow me." Alex, having noticed something unusual, chuckled and sped off in one direction. Dao Jian was stunned. They'd always put immense effort into finding the puppets, but now, seeing Alex's intentions, it seemed incredibly easy, which immediately astonished Dao Jian. Alex, unaware of Dao Jian's thoughts, tracked down a speck of dust and chased after them. He watched helplessly as the speck of dust landed on a person and instantly sank into them. That's it. The moment the speck of dust entered their body, Alex realized the person had lost their soul and transformed into a new puppet. Alex snorted and attacked again. The new puppet didn't even have time to move before Alex reduced it to ash. Dao Jian, following behind, was completely stunned. If he hadn't known Alex's character, Dao Jian would have suspected he'd become a murderer. Alex ignored Dao Jian behind him and immediately spotted the rather strange object in the dust. Dao Jian noticed Alex's movements and immediately came closer. Seeing the dark dust in Alex's hand, which glowed with a faint purple light, he was stunned again. "What is this? If I'm not mistaken, this must be a fragment of the Soul Stone." Alex carefully examined the tiny purple particle in his hand, his eyes shining. The Soul Stone fragment was so small that even if it was in his hand, Alex would not have noticed it without careful observation, which is why Alex had not noticed it before. Dao Jian looked Alex up and down in surprise, and it was only then that he was surprised to realize that Alex had become different from before. A flash of inspiration suddenly occurred to Dao Jian. "Alex, have you inherited the power of the 10,000 stars?" Alex nodded and left without saying a word. Finally, he had a clue. And Alex would not delay any longer. Using the magical connection between the Soul Stone fragment and the Soul Stone itself, Alex finally pinpointed Thanos' location. Without time to alert the others, Alex pursued him alone. Simultaneously, the moment the Soul Stone fragment was discovered, Thanos also noticed Alex's presence. "He's still alive," Thanos merely gasped in surprise, then ignored him, completely ignoring Alex. Alex, unaware that Thanos had discovered him, pursued him all the way, secretly contemplating the upcoming battle. The events of the ordeal had a profound impact on Alex, and the fantasy battle scenes recurred in his mind. Although the ordeal was fake, it served as a reminder that with his current strength, he wasn't necessarily a match for Thanos. Alex tried to achieve the sudden power boost he'd experienced in the ordeal, but no matter how he simulated despair or how much he tried to stimulate himself, he couldn't muster the energy to unleash his power. As Alex pondered, he drew closer and closer to Thanos. As he drew closer, Alex grew nervous, his body trembling uncontrollably. Alex didn't know why he was so nervous. He wasn't afraid at all, yet his body trembled uncontrollably. To calm himself, Alex kept saying, "Just Thanos, a clueless idiot." Alex's casual remark hadn't occurred to him, but it had actually drawn Thanos out. Just Thanos? Humph, such a big mouth. With a cold snort, the towering Thanos appeared out of thin air before Alex, his lips clenched in a sinister grin. Before meeting Thanos, Alex's body had been trembling, his heart unsettled. But when Thanos appeared, Alex instantly calmed down, both mentally and physically. Just in time, Alex took the initiative, raising his hand and unleashing a wave of golden energy towards Thanos. Thanos's energy perception was no less impressive than Alex's. He immediately detected the immense power contained within the energy wave. A solemn look flashed across his eyes, and his expression grew serious, but that was all he said. Interesting, the moment Thanos spoke, a golden energy wave rushed towards him with lightning speed. Alex, however, was not pleased, for he knew it wouldn't harm Thanos. Sure enough, the moment the energy wave neared Thanos' chest, Thanos reached out and grasped the golden energy wave, playing with it like a ball. Even though Alex had been prepared, he was still startled by the scene before him. He gathered his mind and became stern. The real battle was about to begin. Alex snorted coldly and sent out another energy wave. However, unlike the pure gold before, this one had a strange black tint. When he inherited the power of the 10,000 stars, Alex's body had merged with a simulated field of power. Although his body was later reassembled, the black hole he had previously acquired vanished. Instead, Alex's absorption ability mutated, transforming into devouring power, devouring everything like a black hole. The energy wave he had just launched contained this devouring power. Thanos' attack and defense were both cosmic level, and while Alex, having inherited the power of 1,000,000 stars, had also reached a similar level, the difference between one at a higher level and the other at a lower level was significant. Especially after the brief exchange, Alex's confidence, once at 7 levels, now dwindled to less than 3. With no hope of increasing his own strength, Alex could only resort to tactics to weaken Thanos. Thanos immediately sensed the strangeness of the energy wave, but failed to grasp the hidden secret within the black speck, casually attempting to dispel it as before. The moment the energy wave reached his hand, Thanos immediately sensed something was amiss and, without hesitation, prepared to shatter it. The golden core of the energy wave was successfully shattered, but the black speck remained firmly lodged in Thanos' palm. Thanos' expression turned cold, and he immediately tried to peel off the blackness. But Alex wouldn't let him. Upon realizing his plan had succeeded, Alex unleashed hundreds of energy waves, each imbued with devouring power. Facing such a dense barrage of energy, even a powerful Thanos had to be wary. Despite the rain of energy waves, Thanos managed to dodge nearly 9, though some still struck him. The damage from the energy waves wasn't the main concern, the crucial force was the consuming power that clung to them. 1,000-mile dam collapses because of an anthole, and these consuming forces were like ants, each one destroying Thanos. Thanos was enraged, yet helpless. He had many options, but the black hole's restraints were now ineffective. Against Alex, possessing the power of teleportation, he was completely helpless. An attack, no matter how powerful, was useless if it missed. The Soul Stone was a treasure, but Alex's telekinesis was equally formidable, and it couldn't affect him. Faced with this predicament, Thanos felt for the first time that his path was at an end. Awake, Soul Stone! With a roar, Thanos unleashed the Soul Stone. The shimmering emerald green gem resembled a captivating, living being, devouring Alex's will. Alex, startled, immediately regained consciousness, staring in horror at Thanos and the Soul Stone in his hand. What is this? Seizing Alex's moment of distraction, Thanos swung his body, scattering most of the dark spots of devouring power. Without Alex's control, the devouring power had very little adhesion and was powerless to stop Thanos' counterattack. Alex gathered his mind and regained control of the remaining dark spots, his gaze constantly flicking towards the Soul Stone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271, Battle with Thanos, Part 2. In his previous life, Alex had a habit, whenever he encountered something he didn't know or wasn't clear about, whether watching a movie or reading a novel, he would delve into it until he understood it completely. Several Marvel films have referenced the Infinity Stones, so Alex researched them. Each of the 6 Infinity Stones possesses a unique power, with the Soul Stone being particularly special. The Soul Stone possesses immense power, allowing its user to absorb and manipulate the souls of living beings, as well as control and command the undead. This stone is also incredibly dangerous, possessing a degree of independent consciousness and a distinct soul. In his recent encounter, Alex clearly sensed the sinister spirit within the Soul Stone, a spirit that terrified him. Thanos doesn't know. Alex glanced at the Soul Stone from the corner of his eye, then shifted his gaze to Thanos, perplexed. With Thanos' psychic powers rivaling his own, it made no sense he wouldn't notice the Soul Stone's abnormality. But Thanos seemed to know everything. Just as Alex's attention was distracted, Thanos suddenly smiled eerily. He spun around, and the Soul Stone in his hand suddenly flashed a green light, instantly enveloping Alex. Startled, Alex instinctively tried to avoid it. But before Alex could move, a powerful suction force suddenly enveloped him. Alex didn't even have time to react as his body was already being carried away by the force, seemingly shrinking until it vanished into the Soul Stone. Thanos reached out and took the Soul Stone back into his palm. The smile on his face immediately faded, replaced by a heavy, solemn expression. "This kid's not going to be easy," he muttered, and Thanos immediately began to dispel the devouring force clinging to him. The devouring force Alex had so effortlessly conjured was truly remarkable, forcing even Thanos to take it seriously. Alex, upon noticing the suction, immediately attempted to escape using teleportation, but once again, it failed. The immense suction wasn't like the swallowing force of a black hole, it was more like an attraction, an impossible draw. Watching himself slowly fly into the Soul Stone, Alex suddenly understood. Besides controlling souls, the Soul Stone was also the entrance to a miniature universe. The irresistible pull Alex felt stemmed from the pull of the miniature universe it connected to. With this understanding, Alex's worries eased considerably. From what Alex knew, the miniature universe connected to the Soul Stone was an idyllic and beautiful world. But what does Thanos want? Relieved of the weight of worry, Alex began to ponder Thanos' purpose. Is he trying to trap me? Although Thanos controlled the Soul Stone, he clearly had no control over the miniature universe it connected to. At most, Thanos could use it to trap him, and only temporarily. Alex had unwavering confidence in his own abilities. Even if he were transported to another universe, he would still be able to return. While Alex was lost in thought, his body vanished completely from the Soul Stone, and his vision darkened. When he saw light again, he was no longer surrounded by the desolate starry sky, but by a vast expanse of green fields. The fresh air was filled with the fragrance of the earth. "This is a lovely place," Alex couldn't help but exclaim in admiration at the beautiful scenery before him. However, after only a brief glance, Alex turned his attention to how to leave. He immediately attempted teleportation. Something strange happened. Teleportation worked, but every time Alex attempted to leave, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared, blocking him back. "We can talk." Just as Alex was stunned, a cold voice suddenly echoed from all directions, seemingly out of nowhere. Alex's expression changed drastically, and he glanced around nervously. 4 energy shields gradually formed around him. "Don't worry, I'm a soul born from the Soul Stone, and I mean no harm." As the voice rang out, a faint figure appeared in front of Alex, like a ghost. Alex knew the origins of the Soul Stone, but he didn't relax after hearing this. Instead, he became more vigilant, his eyes constantly scanning the soul. As he watched, Alex unexpectedly discovered that this soul looked a bit like Adam. Alex tried to use telepathy to search the soul's memories, but as soon as Alex's mind penetrated deeper, it was instantly swallowed by endless evil spirits and demons. It was as if he had fallen into hell. The endless fear made Alex's body tremble uncontrollably. Finally escaping this nightmarish scene, Alex stared at the soul before him in shock, instinctively asking, "Who are you? Who am I?" The soul, resembling Adam, repeated, then gave a bitter smile and spoke with a dejected expression. I am the soul born from the soul stone, a stone spirit born from the souls of countless living beings. Alex was startled by this and looked up and down at the soul for a long moment. Sure enough, within the human-sized body, a variety of souls continuously emerged, each with a look of sorrow and pain. Alex even saw two familiar faces, the two puppets he had killed on Xander. Suddenly, Alex realized that Thanos had refrained from attacking in recent years, perhaps to use the souls of living beings to nourish the Soul Stone and enhance its power. However, Thanos probably had no idea that a self-aware soul had been born within the Soul Stone. After understanding everything, Alex's expression calmed down. He carefully observed the soul before him and asked, "What do you want to discuss? I'll help you deal with Thanos, and you give me your freedom." Seeing Alex's straightforwardness, a smile flashed across the soul's dry face, and an expression of impatience. Alex had not expected to hear such a request. After a moment's hesitation, he asked with some doubt, "Do you have the ability?" The soul was a soul after all. Although his mental power was indeed enormous, it was obviously not enough to endanger Thanos. "I won't let you down," the soul smiled mysteriously, actually keeping it in suspense. Alex was still a little unconvinced, both about the soul's strength and the request he made to the soul. The soul seemed to see Alex's doubt, but did not argue. Instead, he prepared to make his position clear with practical actions. "It's just a test. You have nothing to lose." Chapter 272, Battle with Thanos, Part 2. Hearing Soul's words, Alex hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. As Soul had said, success or failure would be of no consequence to him. "Next, I'll escort you out." Seeing Alex's nod of agreement, Soul's bleak face lit up with joy. "You continue to fight Thanos, and I'll intervene at the crucial moment." That's it. Alex had expected Soul to offer some brilliant solution, but he hadn't expected such a result. He was stunned, as if he couldn't believe his ears. Soul didn't answer Alex's question, but instead waved his hand and sent Alex out of the miniature universe. Feeling the pull enveloping him once again, Alex's face fell into silence. He sighed softly, and without resistance, allowed the pull to carry him out of the miniature universe. After a brief period of darkness, Alex found himself back on the battlefield. A short distance away, Thanos was still processing the devouring power within him. By then, Thanos' devouring power had almost completely dissipated. Seeing this, Alex didn't bother checking the Soul Stone's condition before launching his attack, raining down shockwaves and devouring Thanos. Thanos had learned his lesson this time, and with a sudden roar, his eyes flashed red. Powerful cosmic energy shone through them, like rays from Superman's eyes, precisely guided, destroying each shockwave mid-strike, preventing them from reaching the target. A flicker of disappointment crossed Alex's eyes, and he decisively abandoned his previous fighting style. In a flash, he appeared before Thanos, ready for a close-quarters fight. His only remaining weapon was now ineffective, and his other abilities were no match for Thanos. Only a close-quarters fight offered a glimmer of hope. To Alex's surprise, upon sensing his intentions, Thanos also abandoned his energy attacks, seemingly preparing for a melee. "I don't know what these guys are thinking," Alex said, only slightly surprised, not overly surprised. During his years in the Sheer Empire, Alex had witnessed the glory of the universe's mightiest. It seemed every powerful individual relished the chance to triumph in close combat, a fact that even in a technologically advanced space empire, gladiatorial arenas still existed. Under the desolate starry sky, two figures collided without fanfare, their fists striking each other almost simultaneously, one in the chest, the other in the forehead. Thanos was considerably taller and more powerful than Alex, so Alex's fists ultimately landed only on Thanos' chest. After receiving the blow, both bodies paused in unison, then flew backwards at an even faster speed. Thanos' blow sent Alex reeling, and after a moment's recollection, he struggled to regain his composure, only to discover that Thanos had already caught up with him. Alex's expression changed dramatically, and he activated his teleportation, appearing behind Thanos in an instant. He clasped his fingers together like a blade, and with a sharp edge, he struck the back of Thanos' head. Upon noticing his target vanished, Thanos reacted immediately. Although Thanos couldn't teleport, his speed was certainly exceptional, no less impressive than that of a teleporter. He vanished from his position in the blink of an eye, and Alex's attack was consequently lost. "Come again." Alex's face flushed with excitement as he watched the fleeing Thanos. With a soft shout, he flashed and reappeared before Thanos. Thanos, not surprised by Alex's sudden appearance, was delighted. He let out a sinister grin, his entire body trembling violently. Silver lightning suddenly erupted from behind Thanos, like a dancing python. Alex sensed something was amiss. Teleportation seemed to be encountering another obstacle. It wasn't that it couldn't be used, but rather that it was choppy, like a cassette tape. This was undoubtedly a disaster for Alex. In fact, ever since their encounter with Alex, Thanos had been studying Alex's teleportation. After constant observation and several successful attempts to disrupt it, Thanos finally discovered the true nemesis of teleportation, electromagnetic interference. Under electromagnetic interference, Alex's mobility advantage vanished, and Thanos unleashed his full might. Thanos' body was incredibly resilient, possessing unparalleled strength, endurance, recovery, and agility. Even his skin seemed indestructible. Facing such a powerful Thanos, Alex's chances of victory grew increasingly slim. If it weren't for the power of the 10,000 planets, which enhanced Alex's physical fitness, he would have been unable to withstand Thanos' attacks. Is that all you have? Thanos' ferocious smile betrayed undisguised pride and arrogance. His punches were like the wind, and Alex staggered like a leaf in the wind, poised to crumble into dust at any moment. Alex, frustrated, stared at Thanos with bitterness, intending to strike back. But every move he made was swiftly shattered by Thanos' brute force, leaving him with no opportunity. As time passed, Alex grew increasingly anxious, praying for the Soul Stone to act quickly. But to Alex's despair, as he watched his death at Thanos' hands approach, the Soul Stone remained unresponsive. Alex's heart sank to the bottom of the pit. A wave of despair began to envelop him, a chill that sent shivers down his spine. Are you just going to give up like this? Just as Alex's heart was about to sink completely, a voice echoed within him, a deafening cry. Don't you want to return to Earth? Don't you want to see Emma and the others again? The voice from the ordeal resurfaced in Alex's mind, so vivid that he doubted he had actually heard it. Even as Alex wondered, a miraculous transformation began to unfold within him, like a withered tree reborn. An inexplicable power surged through him. This powerful force constantly stimulated Alex, and Alex's aura rapidly increased. Huh? Thanos, immediately noticing Alex's abnormality, exclaimed in surprise, his expression etched with a chill. With a cold snort, Thanos struck again, ready to kill Alex in one fell swoop. However, at this critical moment, Thanos unexpectedly found that he seemed to be controlled, his body could not move, and even his thoughts seemed to be frozen. Alex noticed Thanos' abnormality, his face lit up with joy, knowing that it was the masterpiece of the Soul Stone, and roared, Thanos, go to hell. With a roar, Alex immediately rushed towards Thanos, put his hands together, and the tremendous energy gathered in his hands, turning into a sort of creation, which pierced Thanos' body in an instant. Thanos regained control of his body under the huge shock, but at this moment, Thanos could no longer stand up. He knelt in the void, turned his head and looked at Alex with an incredible look on his face. Chapter 273 Thanos Escapes. After defeating Thanos with one blow, Alex collapsed to a seat, seemingly exhausted. But before doing so, he used his last remaining strength to trap Thanos. Noticing Thanos' expression, filled with resentment and disbelief, Alex chuckled triumphantly. Across the universe, only a handful could defeat Thanos. Alex's victory was destined to garner universal fame. After a brief rest, Alex gradually recovered and reached out to snatch the Soul Stone from Thanos' hand. He examined it carefully, a look of hesitation on his face. Alex was deeply grateful for the Soul Stone's action. If it hadn't intervened at the last moment, Alex wouldn't have been able to defeat Thanos so easily. However, he remained concerned about releasing the Soul Stone's soul just for this reason. Who knew if it was a venomous snake? Forget it, let's go back and leave it to Adam. Alex hesitated for a moment, then set up several defenses for the Soul Stone before returning to Xander with Thanos. Alex appeared at Nova headquarters, instantly catching everyone's attention, from Dao-Ji and Todora, down to the humblest Nova trooper. In fact, even Xandal had sensed the moment of battle between Alex and Thanos began. After all, the commotion between Alex and Thanos was considerable. An entire star region was razed to the ground by the two, and thousands of planets were reduced to dust. Such a commotion immediately caught everyone's attention, and they instantly knew it was a battle between Alex and Thanos. When the fighting subsided, everyone waited in anticipation for the final judgment. Alex's appearance was a signal, and instantly the entire Nova headquarters erupted in cheers and excitement. Even the stoic Dao Jian couldn't help but smile. "I'll leave him to you," he casually tossed Thanos down, and Alex vanished from Nova headquarters in an instant, ignoring the crowd ready to thank him. Alex left without a word, heading straight to where Adam lay sleeping. But, to Alex's disappointment, even after Thanos' defeat, Adam still hadn't awoke. "What's going on?" Alex frowned, examining Adam for a moment before turning his gaze to the soul stone in his hand. Could it be this? Even as he pondered this, Alex already took action, reaching out and placing the soul stone on Adam's forehead. Surprisingly, the moment the soul stone touched Adam's forehead, it seeped into him, like a drop of melting water, disappearing. Moments later, Adam, who had been lying motionless in bed, suddenly trembled slightly, a look of pain crossing his frozen face. Alex was about to investigate when Adam suddenly straightened up, glancing around with a serious expression before fixing his gaze on Alex, his eyes as sharp as a knife. "Hi, hello, Adam." Adam's glare was so intense that Alex had to summon his own energy to resist it, while introducing himself. "I'm Alex, from Earth. We've met before." Adam's confusion faded, but his mind immediately recalled Alex, and his gaze softened. He asked with a serious expression, "Where is Thanos?" "Where is he now?" "Don't worry, Thanos has been captured," Alex boasted smugly, his face etched with barely concealed pride. Defeating Thanos and capturing him alive was something no one in the entire universe had ever achieved. Adam's first reaction was that Alex was lying. But when Adam saw the genuine expression on Alex's face, he was startled and muttered in disbelief, "Is this true?" Alex looked at Adam's surprise, feeling somewhat pleased. He was about to explain, but Adam's expression seemed to understand, as if he already knew what had happened. "Take me to see Thanos." As Alex had expected, Adam had learned everything from the Soul Stone. However, Adam showed no sign of joy. Instead, his expression grew more serious, even more anxious. Alex was baffled and wanted to ask, but under Adam's pressure, he tactfully kept his mouth shut, not even daring to express his desire for Adam to take him home. Filled with confusion and frustration, Alex teleported Adam back to Nova headquarters. The scene before him stunned Alex. The once magnificent Nova headquarters was now a pile of rubble, with a dozen people standing there in a daze, their eyes blank. Countless bodies lay around them. "What happened, Dao Jian?" Alex snapped back to reality and immediately locked onto Dao Jian. He was among the living. Hearing the sound, Dao Jian slowly turned and glanced at Alex, his face filled with sorrow and unbridled anger. "Thanos, he's escaped." Thanos escaped. Alex couldn't believe his ears. He had finally captured Thanos, and now, just moments later, he'd already escaped. After a moment of surprise, Alex quickly recovered, looked around, and growled angrily, "What did you do?" It wasn't surprising that Alex thought that. He had Thanos trapped, there was no way he could escape. Unrelated sentence fragment. Alex didn't understand, and Dao Jian couldn't let it go either. He defended himself with a gloomy expression, "We didn't do anything. Thanos suddenly broke free, destroyed this place, and then escaped. It's not their fault." Just as Alex was still filled with doubt, Adam's voice echoed from behind him, his tone calm and undeniable. "Thanos is incredibly powerful. Although you defeated him and captured him, it's absolutely impossible to trap him." Alex turned to look at Adam in disbelief. Adam's words meant he was to blame for Thanos' escape, which Alex couldn't accept. "But after this lesson, I'm afraid Thanos won't appear again for a while." Adam noticed the confusion in Alex's eyes, chuckled, and offered soothing words. "Your contribution is irreplaceable." Alex rolled his eyes, but couldn't say anything more. Alex knew that Thanos' escape was inextricably linked to him. If he had been watching from the sidelines, perhaps Thanos would not have been able to escape. However, Alex was just thinking about it. If it happened again, Alex would probably do the same thing, because compared to the threat of Thanos, Alex hoped to return to Earth as soon as possible. Chapter 274. Open a single chapter description. Scorpio is running 2 books. Anyone who reads books might have noticed that superhero system is also Scorpio's. He's updating 2 Marvel novels simultaneously, and Scorpio has work to do, so he basically sits down at his computer and starts writing as soon as he gets home. It's exhausting and tiring. The results haven't been ideal, so he's thinking about giving up and letting it go. He had that thought after a long hiatus in August. But Scorpio hates letting things go. After all, people are still reading, so he wants to persevere. Just yesterday, I suddenly felt down for no reason. I had a few drinks, didn't feel like writing anymore, and started browsing Kittian's library. I looked around and found quite a few Marvel novels, but few are still being updated. Most are discontinued. Scorpio's 2 books, Marvel Teleporter, is based on the film plot. At this point, the story has just begun, spanning 70 years, from World War II to the present day. The Marvel film plot is slowly unfolding, and there's still a lot of stories to write. Superhero System is based on the comic book plot, but Scorpio has disrupted the timeline. According to Scorpio's outline, we're entering the middle to late stages of the series. Those familiar with the comics know that we've already reached a major event, the House of Magnus, which will lead to major events like Avengers vs. X-Men. Later on, we'll even touch on space, so there's still a lot to cover. Scorpio is kind of stuck right now. I want to give up, but I can't. If I continue like this, I'll be completely hamstrung. So, I'm creating a separate chapter to get your feedback and offer a few ideas I've come up with. 1. Maintain Marvel Teleporter, with irregular updates for Superhero System, trying to maintain a daily update. 2. Maintain Superhero System, with irregular updates for Marvel Teleporter, trying to maintain a daily update. Of course, if no one cares, there's no need for Scorpio to dwell on it. It won't be abandoned, but updates will be much less frequent. I hope you'll feel free to leave your comments. Scorpio needs your feedback. Chapter 275 Rescue. Alex didn't give Adam a chance to speak again. He pleaded impatiently, "Adam, can you send me back to Earth?" Earth? Adam was startled at the words. A flicker of reminiscence crossed his face, then vanished in an instant. He sighed and regained his composure. "Yes, but first, you need a favor." "What?" Alex looked at Adam with a bitter face, his tone unkind, but his head nodded instantly, uncontrollably. Seeing Alex's slightly amused reaction, Adam couldn't help but chuckle and began to explain. "Thanos has used the Soul Stone to control too many people. I need your psychic power to free them." "What do you need me to do?" Alex asked impatiently, not wanting to waste any time, as if he wanted to complete Adam's request immediately. Seeing Alex's anxiety, Adam didn't delay. He slowly raised his hand, and the Soul Stone, which had just been lodged in Adam's head, slowly floated out. "What's this?" Alex frowned slightly, glancing at the Soul Stone in Adam's hand in surprise. Then, he looked back at Adam, his eyes filled with confusion. The Soul Stone was still the same, but now it held a strangely violent aura, like a trapped killer, brimming with madness. Adam's expression darkened, and he sighed. Due to Thanos' mad absorption of souls, a new consciousness emerged within the Soul Stone. Previously, it contained my will, and this consciousness could maintain its goodness. I didn't expect it to lose control after my consciousness awakened and freed, leading to this state. Alex cried out in shock. He had never known the Soul Stone's soul was born in this way. "But don't worry, I'm here, nothing will happen." Adam, assuming Alex was worried, quickly explained with confidence. Alex shrugged, unconcerned. He didn't care about this soul at all. The souls controlled by Thanos are all within the Soul Stone. Before you can release them, you must first contain this emerging self-consciousness. Adam's expression grew exceedingly serious, his tone solemn as he addressed the main point. Alex, having encountered this self-consciousness before, hesitated for a moment before saying, "This consciousness is incredibly powerful. I'm afraid I won't be able to suppress it." Thanos had fallen victim to this self-consciousness, so Alex wasn't entirely sure. "Don't worry. Without my will, its power has been weakened by at least 70%. Adam replied casually, his pride undisguised. Alex glanced at Adam, pondered for a moment, then nodded. "What happens after you suppress it?" Alex's knowledge of the mind and the soul revealed that the self-consciousness born within the Soul Stone was actually the product of the fusion of countless minds. Simply put, the souls within the Soul Stone controlled by Thanos and this self-consciousness were inextricably linked, making separating them a difficult task. Suppress it, then control it, and thus free those souls. That's easy enough, isn't it? Alex couldn't help but roll his eyes, glaring at Adam. Adam chuckled, handed the Soul Stone to Alex, and confidently declared, "With the Soul Stone and my help, we can do it." Alex instinctively took the Soul Stone, staring up at Adam for a moment before nodding his agreement. Finally, he reminded him, "Remember to send me back to Earth when the time comes." "Don't worry, I'll send you back immediately." Without waiting for Alex to speak again, Adam reached out and grabbed Alex's shoulder. In a flash, they vanished from Xander and instantly reappeared in the star field Thanos had transformed into a dead zone. Alex glanced around, but without a word, he looked down at the soul stone in his palm, took a deep breath, and instantly enveloped it with his psychic power. As Alex's telekinesis deepened, the soul stone's emerald green glow grew brighter and brighter, its tyrannical aura growing stronger and stronger, even hinting at a potential breakout. Alex had anticipated the soul stone's self-consciousness to be powerful, but he hadn't imagined it to be so formidable. Even with his current telekinesis, he felt powerless. Fortunately, Adam intervened. With Adam's attack, the soul stone's light dimmed instantly, and the self-consciousness softened as if its very essence had been drained. Alex's telekinesis left it powerless to resist. "Alright, act now." Adam's expression was grave, his tone anxious. "Time's running out. I can't hold out much longer." "Okay," Alex replied, his telekinesis pouring into the soul stone like mercury, instantly suppressing the self-consciousness. The next step was simple. The self-consciousness, powerless to fight back, was easily subdued by Alex. However, just as Alex was about to release the souls within the soul stone, he suddenly froze. Noticing Alex's abnormality, Adam anxiously inquired, "What's wrong? Where are these souls released?" Alex hadn't considered this question until now, only realizing he'd forgotten this crucial point. "Don't worry, they'll return on their own once they're freed from the soul stone's constraints," Adam said, amusement mixed with a look at Alex's serious expression. He nodded and explained, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." Alex, his worries at this, set to work. As Alex moved, the soul stone, which had dimmed for a moment, erupted with a brilliant light once again, brighter and more dazzling than ever before. In the blinding light, countless ethereal spirits burst forth from the soul stone like a swarm of crucian carp, rapidly spreading across the universe, gradually disappearing into countless planets. The hole has been opened, and Alex only needs to maintain it, which does not require too much energy. Looking at the spirits in the starry sky, Alex felt his scalp tingling, and was even more terrified by Thanos' crazy behavior. In panic, Alex turned his head to look at Adam and asked with some concern, "Will these souls be okay?" Having suffered such torture, these souls will probably never forget it for the rest of their lives. "Life is forgetful, no one will remember this," Adam sighed softly, his face slightly lonely. But Adam didn't know that there was such a person who remembered everything, even though he was just a child. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.